The action unfolded in a magical world. A beautiful landscape of the countryside opened before my eyes. It was a clear, sunny day. There were dead chickens lying on the ground. The protagonist was counting them carefully. The protagonist counted 3 dead birds already, but there were many more under the guy's feet. The young man counted as many as 100 dead chickens. This time totaling already 200 birds had died recently. The whole ground was dotted with the name. The main character was very upset. Tears came to his eyes. He now had to take them somewhere to bury them. The guy found a place to bury the dead animals. He started digging in the ground. The protagonist wielded his tool and tore out the hole more and more. At one point there was a clinking sound of metal. The guy stumbled upon something underground. He was very surprised and didn't realize what could be closed in the ground. The boy looked carefully into the hole. There was some green object hidden deep under a rock. It glistened in the sun. The main character got very excited. He thought it might be some kind of treasure and happily reached for the item. The protagonist began pushing away the rocks that hid the green object. All of his hands were in the ground. Through carelessness, the young man cut his finger with one of the stones and blood dripped from it. The protagonist happily took out this green object. It looked like a statue of some person. The young man was very happy. The guy laughed because he thought he was rich now. At that time, the blood from his finger got on the green statue. At this moment, incomprehensible things began to happen. The eyes of the statuette lit up with purple light and looked terrifying. The main character was very surprised. He was confused and didn't understand what was going on with his find. The light from the statue's eyes went straight into the guy's eyes. 2 bright beams of light appeared. This magical power lit up the eyes of the protagonist. It shocked, confused the guy. The main character fell to the ground. He was unconscious from the effects of such powerful magic. At this moment, a voice was heard saying that from today onwards, the boy would be his personal disciple. It was the god Wang Du, the god of 10,000 poisons. The boy will inherit from him the supreme art of wielding poisons, and if he trains well, he will succeed him in the future, having purified himself. The power of god Wang Du illuminated the entire area with purple light. Clouds thickened over the countryside. After a while, the main character woke up from such a shock. He had a headache. The guy managed to sit up. In front of the protagonist, a broken statue of the god Wang Du was lying on the ground. It had split into many small pieces. The guy looked at her in surprise. He didn't understand what had just happened, and what kind of power lurked in that statue. At this moment, a girl came to Xiao Dagang. She asked if the guy was burying his dead chickens again and if he wanted to have another funeral. The girl's name was Zhou Yu Ying. She was sarcastically surprised that despite so many dead animals, the guy could sleep peacefully here, and he really deserved to be the only university student in the village. Xiao Dagang was angry. He said that if the girl didn't mind, he could give her a funeral too. Zhou Yu Ying was angry. She was astonished by Xiao Dagang's attitude so brazen. Zhou Yu Ying shouted and asked how Xiao Dagang dared to be impertinent to her. After all, his parents still owed her family 10,000 yuan. Xiao Dagang got angry. He thought that the girl could mock him, but she shouldn't touch his parents. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so polite to her. Zhou Yu Ying said that so much time had passed after graduation, and Xiao Dagang had never succeeded in any business, and no girl would look at him. Zhou Yu Ying called Xiao Dagang a foundling and his parents stinky farmers. Xiao Dagang was furious. He had already told the girl not to insult his parents. At this moment, something unusual appeared in front of Xiao Dagang's eyes. He looked forward with astonishment. Xiao Dagang's strength activated. He could see through the girl, all her bones and internal organs, also her muscles. The girl looked creepy, like a walking skeleton. It seems Xiao Dagang had something like X-ray vision. Xiao Dagang turned around. He was trying to figure out what was going on and what he should do now. There was a large tree with luxuriant, lush foliage growing next to the guy. It had a lot of parasites on it that left trails on the bark of the tree. Xiao Dagang realized that it seemed to be because of the inheritance he had inherited from Wang Du's special skills. Xiao Dagang activated his strength again. His eyes lit up purple. He decided to try his new skills once more. The guy looked at Zhou Yu Ying again. His attention was caught by something in the area of the girl's heart. With his abilities, Xiao Dagang saw a parasite larva hiding in this area of the girl's body. The guy laughed. He finally realized what was wrong with Zhou Yu Ying and why she was acting like this. The girl felt uncomfortable. She noticed Xiao Dagang staring at her and asked what was so funny. The guy explained that he was laughing because Zhou Yu Ying had poisoned herself. He didn't know if the girl would die quickly. Zhou Yu Ying was angry. She thought that Xiao Dagang was talking nonsense and that it was all complete nonsense. Xiao Dagang asked if she had recently experienced dizziness, weakness, blurred vision during the day. It was as if Zhou Yu Ying was electrocuted. She really had such symptoms. She didn't understand how Xiao Dagang knew about it. Xiao Dagang also knew that one deep night, the girl's entire body was unbearably itchy and incredibly painful. Zhou Yu Ying didn't understand how Xiao Dagang could know about her condition so immediately just by looking at her. After all, the girl had gone to the hospital in pain, and no one had found anything. Zhou Yu Ying's mood immediately changed. She called Xiao Dageng cool and asked if he would find a way to save the girl. Xiao Dageng didn't want to give Zhou Yu Ying's answer so immediately. He pushed her away and asked if she wanted to be rescued. The guy replied that he could do it if Zhou Yu Ying kneeled down and begged. Zhou Yu Ying was angry. This was already too much. She shouted to Xiao Dageng not to cross the line. The guy didn't think he was crossing a line compared to what the girl's family did to him every day. And the girl had no time, because the longer the poison works, the worse it will be. The soul and body are experiencing double torment. If the girl will not endure them, she will end her life. Zhou Yu Ying was scared. She confessed to Xiao Dageng that she was wrong and apologized to him. Zhou Yu Ying looked around. She was going to do what Xiao Dageng demanded after all. Zhou Yu Ying slowly crouched down on the ground. She was about to sit on her knees and beg Xiao Dageng for help. The guy turned around and carefully looked at Zhou Yu Ying. He was satisfied that he had humiliated the girl. Zhou Yu Ying was uncomfortable. She didn't want to humiliate herself like this, however. There was no other choice. The girl asked if Xiao Dageng was now satisfied. Xiao Dageng now saw Zhou Yu Ying's sincerity. He had so-and-so agreed to save the girl. Xiao Dageng bent down to the ground. He started searching for something in the grass. Zhou Yu Ying didn't understand how these actions would help save her. The girl asked what the guy was doing as he continued to poke around in the grass. Xiao Dageng held out his hand to her. He was offering her to eat this. After all, it would help suppress the poison. He guaranteed that the girl would sleep well tonight. And in his hand, Xiao Dageng held a litter of chickens. It seemed to be a necessary medicine for Zhou Yu Ying. The girl was horrified. She didn't understand how this thing could neutralize the poison. She thought the guy was mocking the days. Actually, the chicken droppings only suppressed the poison. If the effect was good, then tomorrow the girl was to bring Xiao Dageng the money, and he would help her again. He told Zhou Yu Ying to eat it, and in the evening when she returned to get a good night's sleep, the poison wouldn't bother her until tomorrow. Xiao Dageng said that she could bring her father to straighten him out. Either way, he wouldn't be able to escape. At this time, someone was walking nearby. Zhou Yu Ying still took the chicken droppings in her hand. Her hand was trembling. She really didn't want to eat it. However, Zhou Yu Ying had no other choice. This was the only way to cure herself, so she made the decision to follow Xiao Dageng's advice. Zhou Yu Ying was very unpleasant to eat it. She chewed a little bit of the unusual medicine. The girl was all doused with cold sweat. At that moment, this picture was seen by someone. He was shocked and screamed. The guys were approached by a man who was nearby. The man was terrified and did not expect this. He screamed that the girl had eaten chicken droppings and was furious about it. A hoe was lying on the ground, along with a basket. There were traces of the company in the soil. Xiao Dageng had finally buried the chickens. He wanted to rest for a while and study his special abilities. Xiao Dageng took his tools with him and headed towards the barn to try his hand. News of Zhou Yu Ying's case had most likely already reached the village. The guy assumed that everyone already knew that she had eaten chicken droppings. This amused the young man. He dropped his hoe. It was time to practice and realize what his powers could do. First, the guy was going to try the power of those special abilities. He was going to need his fists, and he was going to conjure. Xiao Dageng swung. He wondered if his new strength was useful in a fight. The guy lunged forward and struck the air. The chickens were around. They were thrown off by such strong energy. A stream of air rushed forward in front of Xiao Dageng due to his fist strike. In front of him were wilted leaves, the plants blown away by the guy's strength. There were wilted flowers not far from him as well. It seemed to be the effect of the guy's power. Xiao Dageng noticed that both the flowers and herbs had wilted, and already the effect was not bad. If used rashly on people, one could accidentally bring harm to their lives. The guy sat down on the ground and realized that he probably couldn't fully control his power, leading to this result. Xiao Dageng thought about how this could be changed. He wanted to become a better person. Xiao Dageng sat down in the lotus posture and began to meditate. He wanted to get in a better mood to connect with his powers. Xiao Dageng wanted to recall that vision as soon as possible and see if he could get more information about these abilities. A blue light lit up around the guy. God Wangdu was constantly watching the guy. He realized that his disciple needed to describe the essence of the art, and only then would he master all the basic spell techniques. After reaching the highest level, Xiao Dageng would be able to become immortal. Xiao Dageng contacted God Wangdu and heard his messages. He was a bit scared by such a huge power. God explained that the system of perfection is divided into 10 levels, the last being the divine judgment. And each level is also divided into an initial, intermediate period and a final period. Xiao Dageng was surprised that there appeared to be so many things. He wanted to start improving and tempering himself right now. It was already morning. The sun was slowly rising over the horizon, illuminating the surrounding forest with its rays. Xiao Dageng kept sitting with his eyes closed and continued practicing his new abilities. He hadn't moved a bit during this time. Xiao Dagang didn't expect practice to take all night. The guy slowly opened his eyes and wanted to see the results of his work. Xiao Dagang looked at his body. It was all burning with energy. Blue flames were rising around him. Xiao Dagang thought that the effect of the first practice was very good. This was probably what was called the Ming Qi level. His strength had increased significantly. He felt that he could now beat 10 people. Wang Du's true qi might have specific characteristics. He wondered if it was yesterday's ability to see through. Xiao Dagang decided to test this. He activated his abilities. His eyes lit up blue. Xiao Dagang looked at his hand. He wanted to check if his X-ray vision was working now. It worked and looked clearer and more thorough than yesterday. In this way, it will be possible in the future to see through beautiful girls, and also to examine the sick. The guy thought it was worth forgetting to peep beautiful girls, although he is not a man of high morals, but he neglects to do such shameful things. At this moment, Xiao Dagang, someone called out and called him brother. The guy turned around and looked at the guest. On the path directly to his house, Zhou Yuying was approaching. It seemed like the girl had come to get the guy's help again. The girl really wanted to cure Xiao Dagang. He was surprised that Zhou Yuying called him brother. It sounded very pleasant. The guy laughed sarcastically. Looks like yesterday's chicken droppings had a good effect. Xiao Dagang never thought that Zhou Yuying would come to him so early. The girl said that special medicine from yesterday had worked, and all the symptoms were completely gone. Xiao Dagang explained that the poison was still in her, and the chicken droppings only suppressed its effects. If she wanted to heal, only a guy could help her. The girl was fine with money. She was quite able to pay for her treatment without any problems. Xiao Dagang said that once she transferred the money, they could immediately start the treatment, and if the treatment had no effect, he would refund the entire cost. Zhou Yuying didn't hesitate for long. Because she really felt better from Xiao Dagang's medicine, she reached into her purse. Zhou Yuying took out her phone and transferred 30,000 yuan to Xiao Dagang. Xiao Dagang was happy that he had earned such a large amount of money, since it had been so difficult for so many years. Xiao Dagang invited Zhou Yuying to come into his shack, and they could immediately start the treatment. The guy's house was very small. It was deep in the woods, away from the rest of the inhabitants. It had only one room. It was made of straw boards. There were chickens in the yard. The guys entered the house. Xiao Dagang nervously shouted and told Zhou Yuying to stop and asked what she was doing. The girl felt like she needed to undress first so that Xiao Dagang could check her physical condition. She began to do so. Xiao Dagang explained that it was nothing. He told her to close her eyes and extend her left arm about the rest of the time. There was nothing to worry about. Xiao Dagang was about to start the treatment. In the process, Zhou Yuying must not open her eyes, otherwise he would immediately return her money. Xiao Dagang took Zhou Yuying's hand. He realized that the girl as a person is so-so, but contrary to expectations is quite good at taking care of herself. She has delicate skin. Xiao Dagang quickly came to his senses. He realized that he was not clear what he was thinking because such a promiscuous girl could not possibly be a good person. Xiao Dagang activated his strength. He was going to see what the problem was and cure the girl. Xiao Dagang activated his X-ray vision. He saw every bone and every muscle of Zhou Yuying. He was looking for what the problem was. After scanning her body, Xiao Dagang finally found the cause of her illness. It was a small parasite larva in Zhou Yuying's stomach. This poison worm was still in her. Xiao Dagang, taking this opportunity, wanted to try out the lower stage poison control art. Xiao Dagang activated his strength. He concentrated it on his index finger and was going to help Zhou Yuying. He reached for the girl's stomach, the place where the worm had been. Xiao Dagang put his hand towards the parasite worm. It ignited because of the guy's strength. It seemed to have succeeded. Zhou Yuying was experiencing unpleasant sensations. She was in a bit of pain, but the girl was willing to bear with it. With his strength, Xiao Dagang managed to move the worm from the abdominal cavity to the chest cavity. The parasite rushed upwards. After that, the worm headed towards Zhou Yuying's left arm. It made its way from the shoulder to the girl's wrist. Xiao Dagang said that the treatment might be a little painful. Zhou Yuying had to be patient. The girl agreed, because it was the only way out of the situation. Tears came to her eyes. A small cut appeared on Zhou Yuying's palm. Xiao Dagang's strength had entered it and was about to take out the parasite. A worm's head appeared from the incision. It squeaked, however. Xiao Dagang diligently pulled it out. Xiao Dagang managed to grab the parasite, grabbing its body with a sharp movement and pulling it out. The treatment was complete. Zhou Yuying could already open her eyes and see what was troubling her. The girl felt bad. She slowly opened her eyes. The treatment was harder than she thought. Right in front of her eyes, Zhou Yuying saw the very same parasite worm that had been there all this time, pestering her body. The girl was frightened. She shouted, "What is Xiao Dagang doing?" She was worried about this nauseating worm. She asked her to quickly remove it. Xiao Dagang explained that this parasite had crawled out of Zhou Yuying's body, and it was the reason why she was poisoned. Xiao Dagang crushed the worm with one hand. Zhou Yuying was disgusted by the sight of this animal. Xiao Dagang said that these creatures are only on Mount Yutu. He asked if the girl was there and where her bite wound was. Zhou Yuying replied that it was all nonsense after all. She hadn't been to this mountain recently. Xiao Dagang thought that the girl didn't have any clothes on when she was on that mountain. She probably had dates, probably with Jiang Dafu from the neighboring village. The girl was very angry at what Xiao Dagang said. She thought he was talking nonsense. After all, she was dating Liu Bao. Unexpectedly, Zhou Yuying realized what she had just said. It was a secret she didn't want to give away. Zhou Yuying got angry and asked if Xiao Dagang had cheated her. The guy thought she was being foolish. Xiao Dagang realized that it was Liu Bao from the neighboring village, so the rumors were true. Zhou Yuying was very surprised. She hadn't heard of any rumors and asked what it all meant. Xiao Dagang explained that there were rumors that Zhou Yuying was shameless and her personal life was promiscuous. The girl was very surprised that she had such a reputation in the village. She hadn't expected it. Xiao Dagang opened the door and said she could go. If she was still worried, she could go to the hospital to be checked and bandaged by Fu Bo. Zhou Yuying was shocked. She didn't know what to answer. She was stunned by these rumors. Zhou Yuying walked out of Xiao Dagang's house. She was angry with him and was going to remonstrate with him some more. Xiao Dagang was happy that he had just earned 30,000 yuan. It was unexpected and pleasant, and he could earn even more in the future. He thought that now a happy life for his parents and relatives was assured. He would even manage the whole village to increase the family wealth. At this moment, something caught Xiao Dagang's attention. He looked down in surprise and was surprised at what he saw. There was something beneath his feet, beneath the soil. There was an oppressively purple energy everywhere. Xiao Dagang's strength activated. He could see with his X-ray vision to a certain depth. He could see all the roots of the trees, and what was even deeper, there was an incomprehensible dark power there. He realized that his hens always ended badly since the gloomy aura here was not favorable for their life. It was worth checking the nearby mountains. He looked in the distance. One of the mountains was also glowing with that dark purple energy. It stood out from the rest. The guy realized that Nutu Mountain was quite pernicious. It looked even more poisonous than its peak. Xiao Dagang decided to see how the mountain that Zhou Barpi had occupied was doing. The guy turned around and looked in the other direction. Everything was calm on that mountain. It was positioned like feng shui. There was grace on it. Xiao Dagang was angry. After all, he didn't have the conditions to keep chickens here at all. So how was he supposed to raise them then? Xiao Dagang noticed something not far away from him, something that was prancing in the bush. It was a centipede. It had crawled out of the bush and was lying right in front of Xiao Dagang. The guy realized that you couldn't raise chickens here, but you could always keep poisonous insects, snakes. Now he could use the 6th step poison control art. However, the Nutu Mountain was more suitable for containing poisonous creatures. Plus, there were more of them there. He should have found an opportunity to conquer this mountain. Xiao Dagang was determined. He wanted to become stronger as well as increase his level in poison control. It was getting evening outside. Xiao Dagang was walking around the village with his father. He told the boy that he had given the money to Uncle Lu. The man had forgotten about Uncle Joe's money yet. He only has to wait for the next time to pay him back. Xiao Dagang reassured him. Soon he would be able to earn the right amount of money, and he would stop worrying about money. Xiao Dagang hugged his father. He suggested that he should go home since it was already getting dark. His mom must be waiting for him. The village was very small, with small but cozy houses everywhere. Xiao Dagang and his parents were having dinner at their home. They lived poorly, but the family relationship was friendly. Xiao Dagang put rice on his plate and began to eat it. Xiao Dagang ate the entire plate to the bottom. The guy was very full and got up from the table. Xiao Dagang ran out of the house. He was going to go to the chicken farm and promised to return soon. His mom wished for her son to take care of himself. Night had fallen. The month had risen high in the sky, and the forest was quiet and peaceful. Morning came, the fresh frosty smell of the morning wood spilling all around. Well, Xiao Dagang's poultry farm's roosters had already woken up. They were crowing loudly, keeping their master awake. At that moment, someone knocked threateningly on the gate of the poultry farm, and the birds were alarmed. This intruder kicked the wicket door with his foot, almost hitting the chickens that were standing right behind it. However, the birds managed to escape. Zhou Bapi, the richest man in Donkey Village, came to see Xiao Dagang, a man who was avaricious, petty, and vindictive. He demanded that Xiao Dagang come out. The guy had just woken up. He rubbed his eyes lazily and didn't understand who had brought him in so early. Xiao Dagang saw who had come to visit him. The guy was not happy to see the man. Zhou Bapi angrily asked if Xiao Dagang knew what time it was because he still hadn't woken up. And no wonder his poultry farm is in such a bad state. Xiao Dagang did not expect to see the man so early. He asked what happened, why the man came. Zhou Bapi heard that Xiao Dagang went to the village yesterday to return the money. He asked when the guy was going to pay him back. Xiao Dagang didn't understand who prompted him to take this particular person's money. The guy tried to reassure Zhou Bapi he would return it as soon as he could. The man is not satisfied with this. He doesn't want to hear the words faster. Quicker. The man tells the guy to get out of here. Xiao Dagang didn't understand what Zhou Bapi meant and why he was kicking him out. The man angrily yelled and asked what the guy was waiting for. He should move and move his stuff if he didn't want the man to help him. Xiao Dagang asked what Zhou Bapi meant by why he should move. Zhou Bapi was angry. He thought that Xiao Dagang was playing dumb and intentionally acting like this. The man had already arranged with Xiao Dagang's father to use his chicken firm to cover debts in the family. Xiao Dagang's firm was only worth 10,000. This wouldn't even be enough to cover the land's cord fee. Xiao Dagang didn't understand why his father didn't discuss this with him. At this moment, someone else came to Xiao Dagang's bird farm. The man along with the guy turned around to see who it was. Xiao Dagang's parents joined the dialogue. I asked my mom angrily what Zhou Baping needed. Xiao Dagang's parents came to support their son and deal with the situation. Zhou Baping asked Zhang Xueying why she was yelling at him so loudly. After all, they had agreed to use Xiao Dagang's poultry farm to pay off the debt. Xiao Dagang's mom stated that the man said he would exchange the land debt note for another. She thought Zhou was just jealous of their chicken farm. There was nothing left for Zhou Baping to do, as his parents were unyielding. He was going to offer them a way out of this situation. Zhou was going to give his family the right to Nutu Mountain, plus in exchange for a receipt, he would take this chicken farm. This was the exact mountain where Xiao Dagang was going to raise poisonous creatures. This money was enough to start a small chicken farm. Zhou was looking for a ready-made farm so that he wouldn't have to go to the trouble of designing and building it. Xiao Dagang's parents thought that Zhou was too unscrupulous. They finally realized why he needed the Nutu Mountain. Xiao Dagang rejoiced at such good news. He was going to let the man take this mountain. After all, the chickens would die on it anyway. Zhou Baping and Zhang Xueying all kept arguing. They couldn't come to a compromise. No one wanted to give in. Xiao Dagang was fed up with all this. He had a plan himself. He shouted for the adults to stop arguing. And Xiao Dagang asked Zhou Bapi if he would give them a promissory note if they gave this chicken farm to him. The man was okay with that. That was exactly what he was going to do. Xiao Dagang was agreeable to this outcome, but only if he allowed the contract for Mount Nutu to be contracted first. Xiao Dagang's father didn't understand the reason behind the boy's decision. After all, he had spent a lot of time on the poultry farm. Xiao Dagang's mother was also shocked. She didn't expect her son to agree to trade their farm so easily. Zhang Xueying pushed her son away and stood in front of him. There was no way she was agreeing to such a decision. Xiao Dagang asked his mom to just trust him. After all, he had a plan. Xiao Dagang's father was standing nearby. He did not participate in their argument, acting aloof. Xiao Dagang looked at his father. The guy winked at the man. He clearly needed help with his mother. His father nodded. He seemed to understand everything and was going to help Xiao Dagang. The man asked his wife not to be angry. He asked if she thought their son was different today than usual. Zhou Bapi took out the contract that Xiao Dagang had to sign, and the Nutao Mountain would belong to their family. It seems that Zhou Bapi had not been thinking about Xiao Dagang's bird farm for the first day. He had prepared well. Xiao Dagang asked Zhou Bapi if it was true that this mountain would be Xiao Dagang's from the moment he signed the contract. That was true, but if the guy couldn't pay the contract by next week, the man would take the mountain back. Xiao Dagang looked at the terms and conditions. The cost was around 10,000 for 30 years. It was really inexpensive. Xiao Dagang asked if everything on this mountain would also belong to him. Zhou Bapi was angry. He asked why the guy was talking nonsense since he had already told him everything. For Zhou not to say no, the guy would have to sign that contract. Xiao Dagang wrote his name in a designated space in the contract. From now on, the poultry farm belongs to Zhou Bapi. The guy asked to give him a promissory note. At this moment, another man joined the dialogue. He noticed that Xiao Dagang was determined. The man's name was Yu Kai. Zhou Bapi knew him. He was waiting for the man to come. Yu Kai didn't come alone. There was also a crowd of people behind him. He laughed because of the guy daring to sign it, and because he was so confident. It seemed to the man that such a man with a higher education was not right in the head. The man was the son of Zhou Bapi, a hooligan and a slacker. Yu Kai asked how the guy had the courage to ask for this mountain, whether he was afraid of being gnawed to death by poisonous insects there. Yu Kai spat. He called Xiao Dagang a beggar and noticed that he was bombed out of his mind. Xiao Dagang didn't think he was foolish. After all, no one had gone up there for many years. Perhaps there was a treasure there. Yu Kai laughed out loud. He thought that the guy was talking some nonsense, and what he was up to was unrealistic. Xiao Dagang looked at the man pouring laughter with surprise. He didn't like this whole situation. Zhou Bapi invited an agricultural expert who inspected the mountain. There was no treasure there, only poisonous insects. Xiao Dagang clenched his fists. He was angry that the men had thought of everything. The guy thought they were scum and was ready to punch one of them, but he managed to hold back. These two thought they were very cool, so they despised ordinary people like Xiao Dagang and his family. Xiao Dagang said that all the experts are liars, and he believes that he can find the treasure in less than half an hour. Yukai said that Xiao Dagang knows what's stupid, but he's still showing off. If he can do it, the man will sit on the ground and pee like a dog. Xiao Dagang asked if Yukai was seriously talking now, if he would really do what he promised. Yukai was willing to do this, but if Xiao Dagang didn't find the treasure, he would have to do it. Everyone present were witnesses. If Xiao Dagang didn't find the treasure, he would have to urinate like a dog. They would watch. Xiao Dagang asked his parents to help him pack. He was going to return soon. Xiao Dagang was determined to win this argument. He told Yukai and the others to wait for him here. Yukai was sure that Xiao Dagang wouldn't succeed. He was looking forward to the guy learning to go to the toilet like a dog. Xiao Dagang, as they agreed, went to Nutu Mountain to find the treasure. Xiao Dagang was already eager to watch Yukai try on the skin of a dog, but that was only because he had obtained a deity inheritance. The boy was walking up the mountain trying to figure out where he should look. He looked around. A huge poisonous spider was crawling under the tree. It was approaching Xiao Dagang's hand. A large poisonous centipede ran under the guy's feet. The whole forest was dotted with poisonous creatures. As expected, all these venomous insects and snakes are all larger than normal in size. From now on, they belong to Xiao Dagang. At this moment, something caught Xiao Dagang's attention. He raised his head and looked at something carefully. In front of Xiao Dagang's eyes, something glittered. A golden glow appeared. Xiao Dagang found what he was looking for. A golden glow sparkled at the very top of the mountain. Xiao Dagang decided to use his new abilities to search for the treasure quickly. The guy used the power of 1,000 poisons. Blue flames appeared around him. The lad had achieved his goal. He was off the ground in a flash and headed for the treasure. The guy was running really fast. He only had half an hour to fulfill the bet, so he should have hurried. The guy was very nimble at climbing to the top. He flashed up the steep cliffs. Xiao Dagang was jumping over rivers, climbing up mountainsides. Apparently, his new strength helped with this. The forest was silent. Hearing so many sounds of Xiao Dagang running, Xiao Dagang abruptly pushed off the ground. He jumped into the air and was ready to jump to the very top. Xiao Dagang had succeeded. He landed on the ground and was ready to search for the treasure. The guy had accomplished his goal. He knew exactly where he needed to go. In front of Xiao Dagang's eyes was a dark, intimidating cave. The entrance was covered by vines. It looked like no one had entered it. The boy carefully pushed back the vines and headed for the entrance. He was sure the treasure was hiding here. Xiao Dagang looked surprised right in front of him. He was shocked by what he saw in this cave. A small flower with red inflorescences was growing in front of the guy. Xiao Dagang was looking for it. The guy ran up to the flower and exclaimed that it was worth a fortune. Xiao Dagang began to pull out the root of the flower, carefully digging it out of the ground. It was a ginseng flower. Xiao Dagang didn't manage to dig it up carefully. He broke its roots, and therefore, its value is greatly reduced. Besides, it had an unattractive color. It had been fueled by poison from the mountain for years. Fortunately, Xiao Dagang can use the inheritance of 1,000 poisons to purify Renshen. Xiao Dagang started to use his strength. He easily took out all the poison from the flower. If he absorbed and processed these toxins, his cultivation should go to the next level. Xiao Dagang's time was almost up. It was time for him to move out. After all, he had achieved his goal. Xiao Dagang was glad that he had succeeded. There was a real treasure in the guy's hands. At this time, the village was abuzz. Everyone was sure that Xiao Dagang would fail and lose. They were already excited for a good show. Yukai thought that Xiao Dagang would most likely no longer return. He didn't even hide his joy. He advised Xiao Dagang's parents to return early and conceive another child. Otherwise, there would be no one to attend their funeral. Xiao Dagang's parents were very angry. They were astonished by the man's inconsideration. At this moment, someone called Yukai a lowlife born prematurely and asked why his breath stank so bad. Yukai was astonished that someone dared to speak so boldly about him. He turned around. In front of him stood Xiao Dagang. He had returned from his mission from the mountain and was very angry with Yukai. Yukai was surprised that Xiao Dagang had actually survived. He thought that he was incredibly lucky. Yukai laughed angrily. He was just sure that Xiao Dagang had failed their bet. He asked why Xiao Dagang's hands were empty and where was the treasure the guy was talking about. He told him to show them all. Yukai thought that Xiao Dagang actually just didn't find anything. He told him to get on the ground already. Xiao Dagang was very angry because of this man's attitude. He thought of how to teach him a lesson. The guy hoped that there was a limit to Yukai's abomination. He buried the guy and even mocked his parents. Xiao Dagang was sure he should teach him a lesson. Xiao Dagang reached into his jacket. He was going to take out that very treasure and let Yukai see it with his own eyes. Yukai was still confident that Xiao Dagang wouldn't show anything worthwhile. He was waiting for this spectacle. Xiao Dagang took out a ginseng flower from his jacket and told everyone to look over here. He asked if Yukai knew what it was. The ginseng flower was already a different color from the one in the cave, and all the roots were in place. All the surrounding people looked at the flower in surprise. They were amazed that Xiao Dagang had found it on this mountain. Yukai didn't understand what was going on. He didn't know about colors at all. The man asked if this flower was the treasure. He couldn't believe it. Yukai thought that Xiao Dagang was talking nonsense, and that one had to be sick in the head to buy this herb from him. At that moment, Zhou Bapai swung at his own son and hit him in the face with all his might with his fist. The man flew away. Zhou Bapai was very angry at his son. He knew how much Ren Shen was really worth. Yukai was crying while lying on the ground. He didn't understand why his father had hit him. Zhou Bapai asked if he could just punch him, and told his son to go home and see if the hens had laid eggs. Xiao Dagang asked where the man was in such a hurry after all. His bet with Yukai wasn't over yet. Yukai still didn't realize that he lost. She asked where his father was dragging him. After all, he had yet to see Xiao Dagang act like a dog. The villagers looked at the ginseng flower with astonishment. They knew that it was worth a fortune to the Xiao family. After all, it was an incredible plant. Yukai finally realized what was happening. He was surprised that there was a ginseng flower in front of him. The man thought it was impossible. The experts his family had hired clearly said there could be no treasure on Mount Nutao, and they couldn't be lying. Zhou Bapi stepped his boot on Yukai's face and sent these experts far away. The man continued to stomp on his son. He was angry that he had lost so much money. Yukai begged his father not to kill him. Xiao Dagang stopped Zhou Bapi, for if he continued, there would be no one to show them the show. Zhou Baping demanded that Xiao Dagang quickly give him this ginseng. After all, he is the village chief, and the village hills are the common property of the village. Xiao Dagang was angry. He thought that Zhou Bapi couldn't be moved by a tank either. Yukai also joined in. He repeated that it was the village's property, and his father was the acting headman, so he should give the ginseng to him. Xiao Dagang said that the contract is clear, and after signing it, the hill including its contents belongs to the guy completely. Zhou Bapai said that this is nonsense, because the guy has not yet given him the money for the contract. This place can't be his. Xiao Dagang was sure that he was right. After all, he had signed a contract, and if the man continued to behave like this, he would sue him. Zhou Bapai was angry. If the guy really did this, there would be questions that would be hard to evade. The man offered to buy this ginseng for 30,000, and the guy wouldn't have to look for somewhere to sell it. Xiao Dagang was even surprised that Zhou Bapi recognized the ginseng as his property. The man did agree to it, and if the guy nodded, he would give him 30,000 in cash right away. He explained that no one would be as generous as he was. Xiao Dagang smiled slyly. He said that Zhou Baping is very kind. The guy stated that not everyone is as stupid as his son. The guy was not going to sell Ren Shen. Zhou Baping became furious. He had not expected such a response from Xiao Dagang. Zhou Baping, along with his son, turned around and were about to leave. They were still going to see who would have the last laugh. Xiao Dagang stopped Yukai, took him by the shoulder. They still had unfinished business. It seems that Yukai had completely forgotten about the conditions of their pairing. He needed to fulfill them. Yukai shouted that she didn't know what he was talking about and told Xiao Dagang to take his hands off him. Yukai really wanted to get away with it. Fortunately, Xiao Dagang had prepared for this situation. Xiao Dagang began to use his powers of 1,000 poisons to catch Yukai. He looked with his scanning vision and saw through the man's clothes. He called Yukai funny. Xiao Dagang threatened Yukai that he would let everyone else know what kind of underwear he was wearing. Yukai was startled and covered in sweat. He said that he didn't understand what the guy was talking about. Xiao Dagang saw that the man was walking around wearing a red loincloth and black tights. This shocked Yukai. He didn't understand how Xiao Dagang could know about this. Zhou Bapi looked at his son in surprise. He didn't understand what they had going on there and what they were talking about. All the villagers were watching the guy's dialogue intently. Everyone was eager to see an interesting sight. Cold sweat ran down Yukai's face. He wondered how Xiao Dagang knew about his underwear. Xiao Dagang replied that the man didn't need to worry about it. He was going to count to 3 if the man didn't act. He would take off his clothes for everyone to see. Yukai was very angry, because if his preference was found out, his father would definitely break both of his legs. Yukai would then forever be a scum in this village. Yukai had no choice but to fulfill his punishment. In the bet, he kneeled down. Zhou Bapi was horrified by his son's behavior. He hadn't expected this turn of events. All the villagers looked at this picture in surprise. They were amused by this humiliation of the village head's son. Yukai got on all fours and started ordering her dog. Everyone had fun watching this. He asked if that was enough. Xiao Dagang told him to take his time. He was going to still listen to him bark, in case someone didn't understand what he was doing. Yukai got even more angry. He felt very embarrassed from being humiliated like this, but there was no other way out. Yukai accepted his fate and started barking in front of everyone as well. All the residents laughed loudly. They thought that the man had lost his mind, and that Yukai had learned such shamelessness from his father. Zhou Bapi was very angry with his son. He shouted, furious, for he had humiliated him too. Yukai was scared of what his father could do to him. He was already ready to receive more blows. Zhou Bapi shouted that his son had failed him again and threatened to beat him to death. Xiao Dageng was very pleased with himself. Zhou Bapi chased after his son and threw stones at him. He thought he had raised garbage on his head. The subsequent events unfolded in the Zhao family's luxurious mansion. It was really huge. In their house, terrible sounds of whiplash could be heard, someone swearing loudly. Someone thought the other had no shame or conscience and continued to beat viciously. It was Zhao Bapi. He was punching Yukai with all his might. While he tried to cover his head to keep from hurting it, Yukai was crying. He begged not to beat him. He remembered that his sister ate chicken droppings because of Xiao Dageng. He didn't understand why she didn't get anything for it. Zhao Bapi was even more angry. He was not satisfied with any of his children. The man took another swing. He didn't understand how someone like him could breed such dumbasses. The beatings continued. At this moment, a woman walked into the room. She was angry and asked what Zhao Bapi was doing. The woman asked if he was crazy. Yukai, in her opinion, should have gone to look for Xiao Dageng. The woman was Yukai's mother and Zhao Bapi's wife. Yukai looked at the woman hopefully. Zhao Bapi looked at his wife awkwardly. She really had authority in the family. The woman said that this hungry Xiao Dageng offended Yu Ying and then Yukai. The woman would not tolerate such a thing. Zhao Bapi was in agreement with his wife. This brat had brought them so much trouble, the man was going to go and find him right now. Zhao Bapi had already run out of his mansion. He was about to do as he promised his wife. However, the woman stopped him. While on the doorstep, the woman asked if there was any point in making unnecessary fuss. She felt that before she could get rid of Xiao Dageng, she needed to take the money. Zhao Bapi didn't understand what kind of money his wife was talking about. He turned around and looked at her in surprise. The woman had a plan, in her opinion. Xiao Dageng should soon go to the city to sell the ginseng he found on the mountain. The woman has a cousin in the city, and he is not the last person there. Once Xiao Dageng enters the city, her plan will come to fruition. The woman laughed evilly. The woman told Yukai to go to his uncle. He should find some underlings, and they should intercept Xiao Dageng at the exit of the city and take away all the money from him. Besides, they should have beaten the shit out of the guy, but not killed him. Then they'll just split the money with the uncle. Yukai was happy about this plan of his mother's. He wanted to take revenge on Xiao Dageng himself. Zhao Bapi said that his wife was simply brilliant, and he himself wouldn't even think of such a thing. In the village, life went on as usual. It was a quiet, peaceful morning. Xiao Dageng was helping his mom arrange the dishes. He placed a stack of plates on the shelf. The guy was already done with his household chores. He wanted to go and have a look at the new Tu mountain. His mom asked if the guy hadn't been there this morning. The woman thought it was dangerous and didn't understand why go there again. In the morning, Xiao Dageng was in a hurry and didn't check everything very well. He needed to go back and see what to do next with this mountain. His mom agreed. She told him to be careful and asked him when Xiao Dageng would go to sell ginseng. The kid was going to do it tomorrow. Maybe he could make 100,000 yuan. His mom thought this kid was growing up right in front of her eyes. The guy came to Nutao Mountain as he was going to. It was a clear day. There were other people on the mountain. Xiao Dageng was very surprised to see them all. There were a lot of men there, all digging and looking for something about the bushes. Xiao Dageng watched them with astonishment. He didn't know what to say. Xiao Dageng didn't understand why there were so many people here. After all, the mountain was full of poisons. At this moment, something caught Xiao Dageng's attention. The guy was very surprised at what he saw. Standing next to all these people was a young girl. She had blonde hair. The girl was very beautiful, yet she was agitated about something and worried about something. Xiao Dageng was in love with a girl. Her name was Chu Xia. The guy's mood immediately improved. An elderly woman asked Chu Xia why she was making such a fuss. After all, she was nobody to Xiao Dageng. Chu Xia said that contractually, Nutao Mountain belongs to Xiao Dageng, so these people can't dig here. The woman turned away sharply. She felt it was none of her business and she should stay out of it. At this moment, Xiao Dageng rushed over to deal with the situation. He ran up and stopped these people. He told his fellow villagers that they couldn't dig here and it was his mountain. Everyone was surprised that the guy showed up. They didn't expect to see Xiao Dageng on the mountain today. They started making excuses. They said that the mountain now belonged to him. And since it was abandoned, these people decided to help him loosen the ground. Everyone else picked up on this version and told Xiao Dageng that they could have been more polite. Xiao Dageng realized that it was all lies. He thought that these people had no conscience at all. After all, they thought that they could dig up ginseng here. Xiao Dageng explained that this place was not only full of poisonous substances, but also vapors, and danger awaited them everywhere. The woman started yelling at Xiao Dageng. She told him not to bully her aunt and to have a conscience. After all, she was the one who had fed Xiao Dageng as a baby, and they had lent them money. She thought that now that she had a chance, it was time to pay them back. All the villagers agreed with the woman. Everyone else started saying that although Xiao Dageng's family had returned the money, they were still in debt and should not forget their kindness. At this moment, Chu Xia stood up for Xiao Dageng She shouted loudly and stopped their conversations. The girl thought it was too much, and her fellow villagers had no right to do that. The woman called her a wretch, and thought she should mind her own business, for the milk was not yet dry on her lips. Chuxia didn't know what to say. She hesitated. Xiao Dagang was very angry at the woman's insolence. He told Aunt Lu that she was at such a venerable age, and how could she speak like that? The woman laughed. She was amused that Xiao Dagang had decided to stand up for the girl. The woman approached Chuxia and asked her if she was afraid of being a girl, if she was worried about not being able to find a boyfriend. The woman brought her hand closer to the girl. At this moment, Auntie Liu was grabbed by Xiao Dagang's hand. He squeezed it tightly. Xiao Dagang asked where the woman was prying with her dirty hands. Liu screamed and asked her to let her go. In the moments of the scuffle, a loud scream was heard nearby. All the surrounding people were surprised. It was Chuxia who shouted. Xiao Dagang was startled and asked what happened to the girl. Xiao Dagang looked at her in surprise. He was shocked by what he saw. Chuxia fell to the ground. She was in a lot of pain. The girl was bitten by something and could no longer stand on her feet. There was a bite mark on Chuxia's ankle. It was swollen and blue. Xiao Dagang saw this wound. He thought it was the poison of a scorpion, one of the legacies. Everyone around them thought that the girl was making a play and that these two would not go to any lengths to make them leave. The fellow villagers thought that they were definitely in cahoots, and as soon as the guy arrived, Chuxia was bitten. Xiao Dagang was angry. He shouted loudly and told them all to stop, for the situation was serious. Xiao Dagang said that if they wanted to find something valuable here, Xiao Dagang would not stop them, but would not allow Chuxia to be treated like this. Chuxia suddenly felt worse. She felt dizzy and cold sweat appeared on her face. Xiao Dagang was very worried about his friend. He blinked and turned and ran over to her. Xiao Dagang tried to calm Chuxia down. He was going to think of a way to cure the girl. Xiao Dagang began to think about how to help the girl. He needed to act very quickly to prevent things from getting worse. The guy looked at Chuxia's leg once more. The situation was getting worse. The effects of the poison were spreading. The swelling on her leg has increased. If something isn't done right now, the girl could die. It was indeed Manhwa scorpion poison, and if the poison spread, the outlines of the plum blossoms would appear. And once they turned red, there was nothing she could do to help her. Xiao Dagang started to use his strength. He was going to see how far the poison had penetrated. Fortunately, the poison had not penetrated to the heart yet. Xiao Dagang was not yet able to remove the poison from the heart, as he did not possess the right technique yet. At that moment, the villagers noticed something strange nearby. They shouted and turned in that direction. Right in front of them was a huge scorpion. It looked like it was very poisonous and posed a great danger. The villagers were very scared. They realized that this was what had stung Chuxia. They decided that it was better to get out of here and quickly ran away. In a second, there was no one left on Xiao Dagang's mountain except for him and Chuxia. Everyone else was scared. Xiao Dagang turned around and looked at that scorpion as well. He wanted to make sure that it was the one that stung his friend. The scorpion kept coming closer and closer to them. It was looking for new prey and was very dangerous. Xiao Dagang briefly used his strength to kill the scorpion. Xiao Dagang was very angry with him because he had stung his girlfriend. He thought the animal was an abomination. Xiao Dagang said that Chuxia should be patient. He was going to help the girl. Xiao Dagang needed to suck the poison out of her body. Chuxia was very surprised. The girl was against this idea after all. This poison could also kill Xiao Dagang. She was very worried about her friend. Xiao Dagang was confident in his abilities. He wouldn't be harmed after all. He wasn't afraid of poison. The girl was very scared. She was cowardly with fear. She wondered where Xiao Dagang's hand was. Xiao Dagang took the girl's leg. He himself didn't realize that the situation looked a bit awkward for the two of them. The guy awkwardly apologized, however, he would still have to spring into action to save Chuxia. The girl had no other choice. She agreed to do what Xiao Dagang suggested. The guy approached Chuxia's leg. He was going to suck out the poison from behind the bite point. Xiao Dagang approached the girl's skin with his lips and bit into her wound. He began to suck out the poison. This wasn't a quick process. There was quite a large amount of poison infiltrating the girl, so there was a bit of a wait. Chuxia was uncomfortable. Her leg still hurt. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes. However, she was glad that there was someone who was willing to risk his health to help her. After her parents died, there wasn't a single person who treated her as well as Xiao Dagang. The guy finished. There was no more poison in Chuxia's body. He asked how the girl was feeling. She thanked Xiao Dagang. She was already feeling a little better. She was just a little tired. Xiao Dagang thought that it was a good thing. After all, her body was fighting the poison. It took a lot of energy. She should have just rested for a while. Xiao Dagang looked at the girl in surprise. He was thrown into confusion by something. Chuxia fell asleep as soon as Xiao Dagang allowed her to do so. The girl was very tired and couldn't hold on anymore. Chuxia looked very beautiful and calm. She leaned against a rock and slept peacefully. Xiao Dagang blushed all red looking at the girl. He really liked her. The guy tried to come to his senses. He needed to think soberly. There was no time to stare at girls. Xiao Dagang picked up Chuxia. She couldn't walk home by herself, so she needed help. Xiao Dagang took Chuxia on his shoulders and was about to carry her home. He was already waiting to get rich. And then, Xiao Dagang would definitely be able to achieve Chuxia and be happy with her now. It was a clear and sunny day outside, with hardly any trees growing around the road. Someone was biking down the highway and humming a song. He was in a good mood. It was Xiao Dagang. He was riding his bike and was very happy. Xiao Dagang felt his breast pocket. Xiao Dagang was carrying ginseng for sale. He hoped that he could sell this plant at a good price. Xiao Dagang was in high spirits and headed to the city after all. He would be given more money for this medicine there. 2 hours later, Xiao Dagang had already arrived at the Great Potion Pharmacy. He stood at its door. Yesterday, the guy dug around on the internet and found out that this pharmacy is the biggest in the area. It's the largest collection point for Chinese medicines, and there should be no problem selling here. Xiao Dagang walked into the pharmacy. It was really huge. The guy decided to look around. Xiao Dagang's attention was attracted by something. It looked like he had found what he was looking for. On the walls of the pharmacy hung posters and stands about medicine, with all sorts of slogans and pictures of people. In the center sat a bored-looking man behind a desk. It was Dr. Shen Jinbing. Xiao Dagang walked over to Dr. Shen Jinbing and sat down at the table. It looked like he was the one the guy was looking for. Xiao Dagang said that he wanted to sell a very precious medicinal plant and offered to talk about it in private. The doctor was very surprised. He was interested in what kind of medicine Xiao Dagang had brought him. The doctor did not immediately believe the young man's words. He looked at him suspiciously. Dr. Shen Jinbing didn't understand how this youngster could have anything precious. The doctor looked around. There were indeed a bunch of pharmacy customers around, along with pharmacists. The doctor suggested Xiao Dagang to follow him. He thought it was better to take a look just in case there was really something worthwhile. They came to a place that looked like a library. The doctor asked what plant they were talking about and asked to see it. Xiao Dagang looked around to the sides. He was surprised that the doctor had brought him to such a place and felt that it wasn't really suitable for their conversation. The doctor explained that there were people everywhere now, so it was better here. He didn't want Xiao Dagang to waste his time and told him to show him the medicine. Xiao Dagang hesitated. He wasn't sure if this decision was right. However, the guy still decided to show the doctor his find. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Xiao Dagang took out a ginseng root and showed it to the doctor. He asked what the doctor thought about it. Dr. Shen Jinbing was very surprised when he saw such a rare medicine. He was stunned and didn't even know what to say. The doctor snatched the ginseng root from Xiao Dagang's hands and wanted to take a closer look at it. Dr. Shen Jinbing was curious as to where and when the guy had gotten such a rare plant. Xiao Dagang explained what he had dug up on the mountain yesterday and asked how much the doctor could offer him for it. The doctor thought that Xiao Dagang was a redneck and would be easy to fool. He said that the guy was very lucky. But when he was digging up the ginseng root, he damaged one of the lobes. The doctor explained that since the root was damaged, it was almost worthless. Xiao Dagang said he understood and asked how much the doctor could give for him. The doctor said that he could see that Xiao Dagang was an honest guy, and he didn't want to cheap out. He was willing to name his price. Dr. Shen Jinbing bolts to offer Xiao Dagang 30,000 yuan for this plant. Xiao Dagang was shocked at such a small price. He didn't know what to reply. The guy screamed. He was furious that for years of ginseng, the doctor was only going to give him 30,000. He asked if the man took him for a child. The doctor understood what Xiao Dagang was upset about. After all, he had named the highest price, and if someone else paid him 10,000, it would be good luck. Xiao Dagang was even more angry. He asked what the doctor was talking about and told him to give the ginseng back since it was no longer for sale. The doctor said that Xiao Dagang should behave himself, and he would either agree to this price or get nothing at all. Xiao Dagang realized that something wasn't clear here and the doctor was clearly not understating something. Xiao Dagang noticed that it turns out the doctor still wants to get his ginseng to his hands. The doctor was frightened by this formidable appearance of Xiao Dagang. He asked what the guy was even talking about. The doctor began to think of ways to avoid this situation. He leaned over and looked out the door. The doctor called the guards. He said that Xiao Dagang was an intruder and asked them to take him out. Xiao Dagang realized that the doctor was not only trying to screw him over, he was also trying to slander him. The guy was ready to slit his throat. The guards came running to help the doctor. They were going to stop Xiao Dagang and detain him while the doctor ran away. Xiao Dagang kept tearing off in pursuit of the doctor. He tried to get past the guards who were blocking his way. Xiao Dagang managed to grab the doctor by the scruff of his neck. He was very determined and wanted to deal with the man. Xiao Dagang was furious. He asked if the doctor had gathered far away and was about to run away. The man shouted at this time. Other guards were already running to the doctor's aid. They were of course on the employee's side. The guards surrounded the two. They were armed with batons and told Xiao Dagang to let the doctor go, or else he wouldn't get in trouble. Xiao Dagang snatched the ginseng from the doctor's hand, for it rightfully belonged to him. Xiao Dagang threw Dr. Shen Jinbing onto the floor with all his might. He fell down with a clatter. The The guards thought that Xiao Dagang had attacked a person and ordered them to capture him. The rest of the pharmacy staff felt that Xiao Dagang should get what he deserved, and he would know how to make a mess here. Another guard appeared behind Xiao Dagang's back. He swung his baton at the guy and wanted to hit him unexpectedly. One of the nurses was shocked by this situation. The girl had never seen such fights in their pharmacy before. Xiao Dagang managed to deflect it. He avoided the strikes from the guard. Xiao Dagang hadn't had a good opportunity to assess his abilities before, so he was going to do it right now. The guard said that if the guy thought he had the strength to tackle him, he was overconfident. The guard was very angry. He was going to teach Xiao Dagang some manners since he was here. The guard swung his baton once more. He wanted to hit the guy directly in the face, but he missed again. Xiao Dagang dodged. The guy thought the guard was too slow. His reflexes had clearly improved and were very fast. Now it was Xiao Dagang's turn to attack. He swung around and decided to strike. Xiao Dagang hit the guard. The guard didn't have time to get back. Xiao Dagang hit right on the pain point. The man experienced incredible pain. His eyes darkened. The man screamed in pain. The guard fell to the ground unconscious. Xiao Dagang thought that they were just a couple of clowns who thought they could do something. All the other guards were shocked by such a technique of Xiao Dagang. They shouted to their commander. The guards decided that they should all grab Xiao Dagang together. All the men rushed to attack him at the same time. Xiao Dagang was very agile. He skillfully dodged all the strikes from the guards. Xiao Dagang decided to spring into action. He grabbed one of the guards by the leg. Everyone was very surprised and didn't understand what the guy was doing. Xiao Dagang was going to make a whirlwind of people. He was very confident in his strength. The guard was shocked. He didn't understand what was about to happen and how Xiao Dagang could be so strong. Xiao Dagang began to spin this guard around, knocking everyone else down. The man shouted loudly. At the end, Xiao Dagang let go of the guard. He flew far away and was unconscious. Xiao Dagang rubbed his hand on his arm. He was very pleased with himself since he was able to defeat so many opponents by himself. There was an unconscious guard lying on the floor. All the pharmacy staff looked at Xiao Dagang in shock. Xiao Dagang searched for Dr. Shen Jinbing among those bodies. He still had unfinished business with him. Xiao Dagang realized that this old man had decided to cheat him. He had picked up the doctor by the scruff of the neck and was going to straighten him out. Xiao Dagang had a secret weapon. He took out a small black pill from his pocket. Xiao Dagang stuffed this pill into Dr. Shen Jinbing's mouth and told him to try it. The doctor grimaced in a flash. He asked what the guy had given him. It was just one of the poison pills that Xiao Dagang made at his leisure. Xiao Dagang didn't know how many others a person like the doctor had brought trouble to, but he felt it was his duty to teach him a lesson. The doctor immediately felt the effects of Xiao Dagang's poison pill on him. Something strange began to happen to his body. The doctor screamed in agony. The effect was intolerable. His whole body itched terribly. The doctor continued to scream. He brushed his skin, leaving deep marks on it. Xiao Dagang thought the effect was not bad. This pill he called 10,000 insect bites. The name spoke for itself. The doctor began to apologize. He said he wouldn't do it again. The man clung to Xiao Dagang's leg and asked him to give him medicine. Xiao Dagang was in no hurry to do so. He smiled and asked if the doctor really wouldn't do this anymore. The doctor tried to convince Xiao Dagang of this. He apologized for trying to misappropriate the guy's ginseng and causing him so much trouble. Everyone else in the pharmacy realized that it turns out it wasn't the doctor's ginseng, and thought he got what he deserved. Xiao Dagang gave a sly chuckle. The doctor seemed to understand where he belonged. The guy smiled and proudly announced that there was no cure for this scabies. The doctor would have to be patient. The doctor was in shock. He didn't understand how he could stand it, because his whole face was already full of scratches. At that moment, another man approached them. He asked what was going on here and what was the noise in this pharmacy. The man was the boss of this pharmacy. All the other pharmacy employees looked at him with surprise. Xiao Dagang was also surprised. He turned around. The guy didn't expect such a big person to come now. The boss of the pharmacy was a middle-aged man. He looked very solid, wearing a large gold jewelry. The man shouted to the guards and asked why they were sprawled out and told them to get up. One-time guard explained that Xiao Dagang made a fuss here and beat up their doctor. But it seems that Dr. Shen was trying to appropriate his ginseng for himself. The boss understood that this could ruin the reputation of their pharmacy as well. He didn't even understand who Dr. Shen was. One of the employees explained that he was a doctor from a neighboring village who had come here for a part-time job. This was his first day on the job. The boss shouted and asked where the doctor was. He wanted to ask him personally about the situation. One of the pharmacy staff said the doctor just ran out. He said he had to go to the hospital right away. The man told the guards to bring him to him. He would try to negotiate with Xiao Dagang for now. The boss apologized to Xiao Dagang. He was very sorry. He promised that this would not happen from now on. Xiao Dagang knew that it wasn't the boss's fault. He didn't want to start a fight. Xiao Dagang was about to leave the pharmacy. He said goodbye to the man. The man asked him not to leave just yet. The man asked Xiao Dagang to let him look at the ginseng. If the condition was good, He was willing to pay well for it. Xiao Dagang turned around. He thought that this wasn't such a bad option and was worth a try. Xiao Dagang agreed to the boss's proposal. The latter invited him to go to his office. The pharmacy boss was very kind. He poured Xiao Dagang tea as a greeting. The boss started to examine the ginseng through the magnifying glass. If he wasn't mistaken, Xiao Dagang had just dug it up. Xiao Dagang confirmed the man's words. He explained that he dug it out yesterday on the mountain. However, Xiao Dagang wanted to warn the man in advance. If he wanted to pay 30,000, then there was nothing for them to talk about. The man screamed. He was shocked at such a small sum and thought that the doctor was out of his mind. The man explained that he was conducting his business honestly and told Xiao Dagang not to worry. He immediately realized that the guy was knowledgeable in his business. Xiao Dagang added that this ginseng is not 100 years old and a man should understand its real price. The pharmacy boss didn't want to hide the fact that he just needed this kind of ginseng root. The man was going to offer Xiao Dagang 200,000 yuan. He asked if the guy was satisfied with such an amount. Xiao Dagang was shocked. He hadn't expected such a great result from his find. Xiao Dagang was covered in cold sweat. He had never seen so much money in his life. Xiao Dagang was dumbfounded. He couldn't squeeze himself out a word while sitting across from the pharmacy boss. The man said he knows the price is a little low, but the root is a little damaged. 200,000 is the limit. Xiao Dagang replied that he agreed to such an amount. It was better to transfer everything in one payment. The man was agreeable. He asked if Xiao Dagang had an account. He was going to send the money over the phone. Xiao Dagang took out his phone. The man quickly transferred money to him. The transfer was successful. The guy looked at his bank account. He was amazed at such a huge amount. At that moment, one of the employees flew into the boss's office. He was very excited and said they were in trouble. The man asked what their problem was and why his coworker was so agitated. The employee said that the boss himself should see everything because something strange was going on there. One of the employees flew into the boss's office. He was very excited and said they were in trouble. The man asked what had happened and why his coworker was so excited. A staff member told me that there was someone there claiming that their medication was causing his daughter to go crazy. The boss asked who had allowed himself to talk such nonsense and told him to take him there quickly. Xiao Dagang also decided to watch this commotion. The guy was curious. They all walked together to the scene. The boys came to see these troubled visitors. Someone said that he missed his mom very much. Xiao Dagang looked around the corner. He was very surprised at what he saw. There was a girl sitting on the floor. She was hugging a trash can and asking why her mom didn't take her with her. The girl's father looked away and noticed those who had entered the room. He was very angry, believed it all happened after taking the medication. Boss Wang looked at the girl with surprise. He had not seen such symptoms before. The little girl cried as she hugged the trash can. She thought it was her mom. Boss Wang started to apologize to Mr. Zhang. He wanted to examine her first. Boss Wang examined the girl, felt her pulse. The man thought it was strange. He thought the cause was not their medication. The girl's father got very angry. He grabbed Boss Wang by the collar. Mr. Zhang warned the man that if anything happened to his daughter, he would bury him himself. Boss Wang said that if the man would temper his anger, they would do everything possible for his daughter. The girl kept sitting near the trash can, a strange mark on her back. At this moment, someone shouted to the girl to be careful. Everyone stirred. The girl collapsed to the ground unconscious out of nowhere. The girl's name was Mei Mei. Everyone was shocked at this deterioration in her condition. The girl's head was already nearing the floor. She had every chance of damaging it. At this moment, Xiao Dagang ran up in time. He grabbed the girl's shoulders, preventing her from falling. Mr. Zhang exhaled a sigh of relief that his daughter had not fallen. However, everyone was alarmed. Xiao Dagang noticed that Mei Mei had fainted. He also wanted to do something to help her. Xiao Dagang decided to examine the girl himself. Perhaps it was a disease in his profile. Xiao Dagang saw a limited inflammation on the girl's back with a hole in the center. Fluid was leaking out of this hole. It was large in size and looked very suspicious. Xiao Dagang thought that it was probably the bite of the polar black widow, causing all of the girl's symptoms. Xiao Dagang explained that Mei Mei was now under the effects of the poison and needed to start treatment right now. She needed a separate room so Xiao Dagang could help her. Mr. Zhang didn't understand who Xiao Dagang was and how he could have such confidence. Xiao Dagang had no time to explain. Every second counted. He told him to do as he said. Everyone around them didn't trust Xiao Dagang. They thought that he was a fraud and wanted to fool them. Mr. Zhang told Xiao Dagang to let his daughter go and roll out of here. Xiao Dagang seriously asked if the man wanted Mei Mei to die without his help. Mr. Zhang was angry at such insolence from Xiao Dagang. He was going to teach him a lesson. The man told one of his men, Yi Fu, to deal with Xiao Dagang. A huge man in a business suit walked up to Xiao Dagang. He was unclenching his fists and was about to teach the guy a lesson. Yi Fu told Xiao Dagang to take his hands off Mei Mei, or he would be in trouble. He grabbed Xiao Dagang's shoulder and was about to snap him. Xiao Dagang deftly dodged. He glared angrily at the man and was going to prevent him from winning. Xiao Dageng grabbed the man's shoulder and squeezed his hand hard. Yifu didn't expect this from the guy. He didn't think the guy was familiar with martial arts. Xiao Dageng threw the man over himself. He used a special technique. The one collapsed to the ground and was unconscious. Everyone around was shocked that Xiao Dageng was able to hit him. Boss Wang asked Xiao Dageng not to cause trouble here, and treating such a disease is no joke. Especially it might harm Xiao Dageng as well. Xiao Dageng felt that he had to save the girl, or else it would be too late later. Mr. Zhang was angry. He thought that Xiao Dageng was talking nonsense, and if anything happened to his daughter, he would be held responsible. Xiao Dageng interrupted him and asked if they had a gray and white spider at home. They really had one. The man asked how Xiao Dageng knew about it. Xiao Dageng explained that such gray-white spiders were extremely rare in places where cold weather prevailed. They are extremely venomous. Only a few people have survived a bite from such spiders. Mr. Zhang told Xiao Dageng to hurry up in that case and act as he saw fit. Xiao Dageng once again moved the girl's blouse and looked at the inflamed bite site. The man was very angry. He shouted and asked what Xiao Dageng was doing. Mr. Zhang told Xiao Dageng to take his hands off his daughter. He kept shouting. At one point the man stopped. He looked up and stared ahead in amazement. Xiao Dageng pulled the web that was hanging from the girl's wound. Everyone around was shocked. Xiao Dageng slowly pulled on it. There was something on the other end. Xiao Dageng pulled out a gray-white spider from the girl's back. It was hanging on the web. Everyone around was shocked that it was actually a spider, and Xiao Dageng was telling the truth. After being bitten by this polar black widow, the first symptoms are excessive sweating, fever and hallucinations, followed by unconsciousness and death. Xiao Dageng showed Mr. Zhang this spider. The man was shocked. Xiao Dageng explained that an ordinary doctor wouldn't be able to cure her. The man snatched the spider out of Xiao Dageng's hands. He threw the spider on the floor and yelled that the girl should not have been allowed to keep that animal in the house. Xiao Dageng explained that the thread couldn't be broken because after the bite, the spider would connect itself to the victim, and then there would be dissimulation of the poison and subsequently death. The man was in shock. He asked what to do and if his daughter could be saved. Xiao Dageng could do this. He needs a separate room and silver needles. Mr. Zhang told Yifu to quickly bring everything Xiao Dageng needed to save his daughter. All the men were methinks. They started running around looking for the necessary materials. At this time, Boss Wang was helping Xiao Dageng drag the girl over. Everyone had hoped that Xiao Dageng could help and rid her of the poison. Xiao Dageng unbuttoned Mei Mei's blouse so that there was better access to her body. Mr. Zhang looked at all of this in surprise. He was very worried about his daughter and hoped for the best. Mei Mei was lying unconscious. Her condition was rapidly deteriorating. Something had to be done. Xiao Dageng was provided everything he needed as promised. A set of silver needles were brought to him. Xiao Dageng unwrapped this kit and took out all the necessary materials to save the girl. The boss looked at Xiao Dageng's methods with astonishment. He had not seen anything like this before. Xiao Dageng was confident. He took the silver needles from the kits and was going to help the girl. No one around understood what Xiao Dageng was going to do. The treatment methods were unusual. Xiao Dageng began to quickly do something similar to acupuncture. He injected many needles into Mei Mei's back. Her father was watching everything that was happening. He didn't fully believe Xiao Dageng. At this moment, Xiao Dageng began to use his strength. His eyes lit up with blue flames and began to take action. Boss Wang could also see this flame. He was very surprised to see such a technique. The man didn't expect that Xiao Dageng was proficient in internal qi acupuncture techniques. The boss told Mr. Zhang to look at his daughter's complexion. The girl wasn't so pale anymore. She was clearly getting a little better. Xiao Dageng still continued to use his abilities. There was still a little bit left to heal. Xiao Dageng pulled out all the needles from Mei Mei's back with a single hand movement. The treatment was complete. Her father ran up to the girl. He was very worried and asked how she was feeling. Xiao Dageng thought that he had helped Chu Xia that time. This time he helped Mei Mei. Soon he would possess all the techniques of the 10,000 poisons. Xiao Dageng wondered if he should try to consume the poison himself. At this moment, Mei Mei was getting a little better. The girl regained her senses and opened her eyes. Mei Mei completely woke up. She saw Xiao Dageng, who was sitting right in front of her. The girl was embarrassed, her face flushed, and she was very surprised. Mei Mei punched Xiao Dageng in the face. The guy flew far away from her punch. The girl thought Xiao Dageng was a pervert, for she was sitting almost undressed. Mr. Zhang ran up to his daughter. He explained that Xiao Dageng had saved her and asked her to apologize. The girl screamed. She didn't understand what her father was talking about. She was stripped here, and she also has to apologize. Xiao Dageng didn't care about her ingratitude for rescuing him. But such an attitude towards his own father was unforgivable. The girl became very angry. Tears came to her eyes. She screamed that she didn't ask to be saved. The girl thought it was better to die with dignity. Xiao Dageng was shocked at such words from Mei Mei. This was the first time he had encountered such a character. Boss Wang advised Xiao Dageng to calm down. After all, it was no longer their business. They should settle their family matters themselves. Boss Wang considered it lucky that everything ended well. He invited everyone to pass. and was going to give Mei Mei a prophylactic medicine. Outside the doors of the room, everyone was awaiting the results of the girl's treatment with amazement. As soon as the door opened, everyone saw Mei Mei, who was completely healthy. Everyone was surprised that Xiao Dagang had actually saved her. The girl wasn't happy with that. She snorted, turned around, and headed for the pharmacy exit. Mr. Zhang explained that his daughter had a naturally willful temper, so he apologized for all the trouble he had caused and wanted to thank her for saving him. The man asked where a professional like Xiao Dagang was from. He gave him his business card. The guy introduced himself and said he was from Daji village. The man apologized once more. Next time he was going to personally bring Mei Mei to express his gratitude. Boss Wang thanked Xiao Dagang. If not for him, the good reputation could be said goodbye. The man was going to thank Xiao Dagang with food. Xiao Dagang refused. It was already time for him to go. The guy had some business waiting for him. Boss Wang sighed. He was a little upset that Xiao Dagang was already leaving. The man waved the guy after him. He said if the guy had any problems, he could go to him. Xiao Dagang received a notification on his phone that a transfer of 50,000 yuan from Boss Wang had been received. Xiao Dagang exhaled a sigh of relief. He was glad that he had managed to earn money today. The guy got on his bike and rushed down the highway back to the village. Xiao Dagang was overjoyed. He shouted that it was wonderful that he had earned money. As the guy was driving home, something caught his attention. He slowed down and pulled over. In one of the alleys, Xiao Dagang saw a crowd of people. It looked like someone was being beaten there. Someone said you can't repair the damage with tears and asked if this person knew what brand it was. Xiao Dagang seemed to recognize this person's voice. He looked on in horror at what was happening. Someone told someone to get up and not to pretend that they couldn't get up. Xiao Dagang tried to get through the crowd of people. The guy was shocked at what he saw when he finally shook off the crowd of men. It was Zhou Yuying yelling at Chu Xia. She thought that the girl was jealous that she could afford a new phone and decided to smash it. On the ground, Chu Xia was lying all battered. Next to her was Yu Ying's broken phone. Chu Xia was crying. She justified that she didn't smash the phone on purpose. The girl didn't mean it. At this moment, Chu Xia was grabbed by her blouse and forcefully pulled towards you. The girl was very scared. Yu Ying asked if the girl thought she could get away with it. She told her to return the money for the phone. Xiao Dagang decided to stand up for his friend. He told Yu Ying to take his hands off her. The girls were very surprised that Xiao Dagang appeared at this moment. They didn't expect him to come. Xiao Dagang snatched Chu Xia from Yu Ying's hands and told her to roll away from here. Xiao Dagang asked if Chu Xia was hurt. The girl was scared and replied that she was fine. Xiao Dagang didn't believe his friend's words. He looked at her carefully and excitedly. There were beating marks on Chu Xia's face. The girl was very upset. Xiao Dagang was very angry at Yu Ying. He asked what she was allowing herself along with her village mutts. Yu Ying asked why Xiao Dagang was stepping in for Chu Xia, what he wanted here. The girl thought that her disease was gone and there was no reason to be afraid of the guy. She called Xiao Dagang pathetic because he couldn't find a job after university, returned to the village, and now thinks he is a hero. Everyone around him was surprised that he was able to graduate from university. They thought that raising chickens was a waste of resources. Yu Ying added that on top of that, Chu Xia broke her phone and she wants her money back. Xiao Dagang asked if the girl remembered the feeling of unbearable itching from the disease. He could arrange it again. Yu Ying did not understand how Xiao Dagang dared to threaten her. Did he not fear her anger from her father? Xiao Dagang asked if there wasn't enough chicken droppings, or if maybe her brother wanted to be a doggy once more. She couldn't scare his father. Yu Ying was shocked. She didn't understand what Xiao Dagang was talking about. The guy coughed. It was time to get to the point and resolve their conflict. The guy asked how much her phone cost. He was going to pay instead of Chu Xia. Chu Xia tried to stop him. She said that there was no need to do that. Xiao Dagang didn't listen and replied that it was fine. Yu Ying thought that Xiao Dagang wanted to show off to Chu Xia and show off a hero. Yu Ying thought about letting Xiao Dagang do it. She was going to tell everything. The girl said that it was a limited edition phone and cost 18,000 yuan. She was sure that Xiao Dagang wouldn't be able to afford it. Chu Xia was shocked. She was sure that the phone only cost 4,000. Yu Ying said that the guys can ask the cost from the store owner. Xiao Dagang didn't argue with her. He was willing to pay the full amount. The guy took out his phone. At the same second, Yu Ying received a notification, a transfer of funds from Xiao Dagang. The girl was surprised. She didn't understand where Xiao Dagang got such money from. He didn't blink his eyes when she named this amount. Yu Ying thought that since the damage had been repaired, she had nothing to stay here. She was going to leave. However, Xiao Dagang was not going to let her go so quickly. He stopped the girl. Xiao Dagang noticed that it wasn't just about the phone. The girl was very surprised. The guy felt that he should still read how much Yu Ying owed Chu Xia. The girl was angry. She asked what Xiao Dagang was saying after all. She already felt sorry for them, and he would dare to say such a thing. The full price of the phone was paid. There was no problem with that. But the girl had hurt Chu Xia and must cover the medical expenses. Xiao Dageng was about to take charge and name a sum of 1 million yen. All the surrounding people were horrified. They thought it was a robbery in broad daylight, and Xiao Dageng was completely stupid. Yu Ying was also shocked. She thought the guy was completely crazy to name such amounts. The girl thought that she had hit Chu Xia several times, and this amount was too much for something like this. Yu Ying called Xiao Dageng a jerk, turned around and was ready to leave. She was about to squeeze through the crowd of men. She wondered why everyone else was hatching, if they had never seen any pretty girls. Xiao Dageng threatened Yu Ying that if she didn't hand over the money, there would be no mercy for her. Xiao Dageng took out his silver needles from his pocket and thought that it was very good that he had taken them. The boy tossed the silver needles in one motion into his hands. The needles flew and aimed precisely at the target. They were approaching Yu Ying's back. The needles dug into the girl's hamstrings and lodged deep into her muscles. Yu Ying felt a sharp pain in her entire body. It was as if she had been electrocuted. The girl could no longer stand on her feet. She fell to her knees with a clatter. Everyone around were stunned that Yu Ying had fallen so suddenly. No one understood what was happening. The girl's legs weren't listening to her. She asked what Xiao Dageng had done to her. The guy explained that all he did was use needles to block the nerve endings of her lower extremities. Yu Ying was angry. She didn't understand what to do or how to get out of this situation. Xiao Dageng said that these needles must not be touched or there would be dire consequences. If they are taken out, she will never be able to walk again. Only Xiao Dageng can take out the needles without consequences. Yu Ying was very scared. She realized that Xiao Dageng was not joking. The girl started to beg Xiao Dageng for forgiveness. She really wanted him to let her go. He could let that girl go, but he didn't think it was fair if she didn't answer for what she had done to Chu Xia. Yu Ying was covered in cold fetus. She didn't know what to do to escape punishment. The girl squeezed Xiao Dageng's sweater harder. She wanted to apologize to him. Chu Xia didn't like this situation. She turned to Xiao Dageng and said that perhaps there was no need to do this. Yu Ying called Xiao Dageng brother again and said that she wasn't that bad and it was just a circumstance. Xiao Dageng thought that Chu Xia was a very good person, but this snake needed to be taught a lesson. Xiao Dageng said that since Chu Xia couldn't hit Yu Ying, she should do it herself. The girl was terrified of the punishment ahead of her. She didn't know what to do. Xiao Dageng advised her to hurry up, for it was better to get the needles out as soon as possible. Yu Ying really didn't want to do this. She didn't want to humiliate herself anymore. Yu Ying looked at her hand in horror. She didn't know how she could make this the least painful. The girl gritted her teeth. It was her only option to be able to walk again. Yu Ying swung around and slapped herself on the cheek with her palm. Xiao Dageng told her to remember to apologize while doing so. The girls struck one by one. At this time, she apologized to Chu Xia and said that she was at fault. Xiao Dageng was cruel. He told her to hit even harder and not to stop. Yu Ying called herself a creature, even worse than an animal and good for nothing. She asked Chu Xia to show mercy and forgive her. Chu Xia couldn't watch this. She said that it was enough and suggested Xiao Dageng to leave. Yu Ying stopped. She could no longer punch herself in the face. The girl's whole face was battered. Tears came out of her eyes and there were bruises on her cheeks. Xiao Dageng was in agreement that this was the place to end. It was bad enough that he had to teach the girl instead of her father. Yu Ying said that Chu Xia wasn't mad at her anymore, so Xiao Dageng could help her recover her legs. Xiao Dageng turned around and told Chu Xia that they were leaving. The girl didn't realize what was wrong with her legs. Yu Ying shouted to Xiao Dageng that he had forgotten about her feet. The guy stopped. Xiao Dageng actually lied. She didn't need him to take out those needles. Yu Ying was shocked. She had been fooled. She was horrified at the realization. The girl couldn't come to her senses. She couldn't even find the words to describe her condition. At this moment, Yu Ying fell to the ground. Blood spurted out of her mouth. The surrounding people were all shocked. They frowned and were about to call an ambulance. Chu Xia asked how Xiao Dageng made her legs not move. Xiao Dageng explained that he had studied medicine at university, and he had needles to cover special points. To open them, the needles needed to be pulled out. Chu Xia thought it was very cool. She thanked the guy for today and was going to pay him back in 2 days. Xiao Dageng explained that he had sold Ren Shen today, so he had enough money. Xiao Dageng asked why the girl was in town. Chu Xia went to repair her phone, but before she did, she ran into Yu Yin. Xiao Dageng just needed to buy a new phone too. He suggested her to go to the cell phone store. Xiao Dageng grabbed Chu Xia's hand and dragged her to the store. He wanted to look at their assortment. Chu Xia decided to agree. The guys went into the store together. Yu Kai stood smoking outside. The man was dissatisfied with something. He threw cigarette butts on the ground. There were already a lot of them under his feet. There was someone else standing next to Yu Kai. Just now, Yu Kai's sister called and said that Xiao Dageng was on his way back, and he would be here soon. The man who was with him told Yu Kai not to worry. Once his head shows, he's screwed. There were a lot of mosquitoes flying around the man. It pissed him off incredibly. The man grabbed one of the insects with a menacing look and crushed it with a slight movement of his hand. The man was angry at Xiao Gang because he was the reason they had to feed the mosquitoes here. He would have to die for it. Once he was here, the man was going to be dealt with. Xiao Gang would answer for all the trouble he had caused Yukai's family. The man told Yukai to calm down and not to go too far. Yukai's mother had given them clear instructions that they would definitely follow. At this moment, someone called out to Baozi. He turned around in surprise and looked to see who had called out to him. Another man ran along the road. He reported that Xiao Gang was on his way. Baozi had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He thought that Xiao Gang would finally show up. The man finished his last cigarette and picked up the bat. He called out to his brothers. In their gang was Yukai and 2 other guys, all armed with bats. Baozi walked in front of them. He was already impatient to deal with Xiao Gang. At this time, Xiao Gang together with Chu Xia were traveling along the road, the girl holding onto the guy with her hands. Xiao Gang was incredibly happy. He considered himself lucky and was full of love. Suddenly, Xiao Gang saw something right in front of him. The guy stopped. In front of him, the guy saw a gang of thugs with bats. They looked dangerous. Yukai stepped forward. He sarcastically remarked that Xiao Gang had arrived. Yukai called Xiao Gang a village hero. He heard that the guy went to the city today to sell ginseng. Xiao Gang said that Yukai was absolutely right, and asked if Yu Ying had told him that. Xiao Gang said that he sold the Genshen for 250,000. And besides, it was his find, not Yukai's. Yukai was angry. He thought that Xiao Gang had completely lost his conscience, and he had better send all the money to the man's account amicably. Otherwise, there was nothing left for his guys to do but rip off all of Xiao Gang's limbs. Chu Xia was very scared. She looked at the men's baseball bats with horror. Xiao Gang reassured his friend. He was confident that these bastards were no match for him. Baozi threatened that the last person who spoke like that was now lying in the hospital. Chu Xia was even more frightened by these threats. The girl shouted that she would record everything on a tape recorder and hand it over to the police. Baozi laughed. He noticed that the girl knew how to defend herself. He liked that. Baozi told Yukai that he wasn't sure if he could share Chu Xia when they were done. Yukai wasn't interested in her. Baozi felt that they should also make a note of how he would have fun with her. Chu Xia thought that all these men were disgusting, and sooner or later, they would get what they deserved. Baozi angrily looked at the girl. He thought that she had a high opinion of herself. Baozi spat directly into the girl's blouse. She was very disgusted by this act of a man. Xiao Gang was furious. He wasn't going to tolerate such an attitude and swung his fist. Baozi didn't expect this from the guy. He didn't have time to react to the punch. Xiao Gang acted very quickly. He couldn't wait to teach these rascals a lesson. Xiao Gang hit Baozi directly in the face with his fist. The blow was very strong. The impact sent the man flying far away and crashing into the van. His accomplices were shocked. They were surprised that someone was able to defeat Baozi. Baozi flew into the van at breakneck speed. He smashed the rear window and left a dent on the car. Baozi fell to the ground. He was unconscious and unable to continue fighting. Xiao Gang was very angry. He used his new strength to defeat his opponents. All the other men ran straight at Xiao Gang. They felt that he needed to be taught a lesson. Xiao Gang stood with his back to these men. They were rushing straight towards him with bats in their hands. The boy turned around and looked at his abusers. He was confident in his abilities. Xiao Gang defeated 2 of them in a flash. He swiftly struck them. There was 1 more left. He flashed over to him and was about to hit him as well. Xiao Gang punched the last opponent in the stomach. The man was in shock. He had no chance to even breathe. Yukai looked proudly at his assailants who were unconsciously lying on the ground. Xiao Gang stood in the center. He was proud of himself. Xiao Gang turned around. It looked like he hadn't defeated all of his opponents yet. Only Yukai was on his feet. The man was dousing himself with cold sweat from fear. Xiao Gang shifted in his seat. It seemed like his plans were to teach Yukai a lesson. Xiao Gang glared fiercely at his assailant, Chu Xia hiding behind him. Yukai was shaking with fear. He didn't know what to do in such a situation. Yukai shifted. Something had to be done to stay in one piece. The man tore away from Xiao Gang. He was screaming and begging to be saved. At this moment, Yukai stumbled. His foot caught on the shards. The man was in shock. He was unprepared for this turn of events. Yukai fell to the ground with a clatter. His feet were above his head. Yukai hit the pavement with his face. It was a very hard fall. The man banged his teeth against the pavement, some of them unable to withstand such a collision. Yukai's 2 teeth fell out. Blood splattered along with them. Yukai was screaming loudly. He was in a lot of pain. Xiao Gang himself was surprised at what was happening. Xiao Gang stepped on Yukai's back and told him to take his time. He wasn't done with him yet. At this time, Baozi began to recover little by little. He coughed up, but he was all battered. Suddenly, someone stepped on Baozi's foot. The pain was unbearable. Baozi screamed in pain. It was Xiao Gang, who decided to teach another lesson to the man. Baozi pitifully asked Xiao Gang not to push so hard because just a little more, and he would break his leg. Xiao Gang smirked and looked at the man. He had thought of something. Xiao Dageng noticed that apparently Bao Zi was still not getting through to him. The guys with the 10,000 poison technique were going to teach the man a lesson. Xiao Dageng will let him taste the poison he created with his new technique. Xiao Dageng spat out this poison on Bao Zi. The man was terrified. The poison on Bao Zi's face began to smoke and evaporate. He didn't understand what was happening. The man screamed. He was in a lot of pain, his face all burning. Now it was Yu Kai's turn. Xiao Dageng was heading towards him and was about to massacre the man. Xiao Dageng asked what Yu Kai was afraid of. Perhaps he wanted his phone number. Xiao Dageng said that it won't work that way, and he wants to give his old phone to the man. He will let him have it. The guy threw the phone away with one hand. Yu Kai was confused. The phone landed in the swamp, not far from the road. Yu Kai watched it with astonishment. Xiao Dageng told Yu Kai to run and bring this phone back to him. And the phone was already buried deep in the swamp, sinking deeper and deeper by the minute. Yu Kai said there was no need to do that. His mom was calling the man for dinner, and he should go home. Xiao Dageng was unwavering. He told him to bring the phone and not to make him do the same thing with Bao Zi. Yu Kai tried to avoid punishment. He said that then he wouldn't even be able to eat properly because he already had no front teeth. Xiao Dageng told him not to talk nonsense and get down faster. He gave him a kick in the ass. Yu Kai was tossed upwards, after which he flew downwards with screams. Yu Kai landed right into the swamp. He dived into it with his head. Yu Kai couldn't breathe. He put his hand out of the swamp for someone to help him. The man managed to swim out, gulping air greedily. Yu Tsai pitifully begged to be rescued, for he couldn't swim. Chu Xia noticed that the man was choking. She asked if it was time to save him. Xiao Dageng replied that it was fine, and he could still hold on for a while. Bao Zi was lying on the ground at this time. He had just recovered from the effects of Xiao Dageng's poison. Xiao Dageng kicked him with his foot and told him to get up. The man was in pain again. Xiao Dageng told him not to pretend to be dead, or he would taste his poison again. Bao Zi wanted to make a deal with Xiao Dageng. Xiao Dageng ordered him to take his men and pull Yu Kai out of the swamp. Bao Zi was ready for anything. He said that Xiao Dageng's order was law to him. Bao Zi, as ordered by Xiao Dageng, gathered his men. They were going to help Yu Kai. A few moments later, everything happened just as Xiao Dageng wanted. Footprints could be seen coming out of the swamp, as if someone had been dragged along the ground. Bao Zi and his men pulled Yu Kai out. He was unconscious. Xiao Dageng was surprised that the man actually reached for his cell phone. In Yu Kai's hands was Xiao Dageng's cell phone. Xiao Dageng allowed the man to go and wash himself this time. But if he ever did something like this again, he wouldn't be so kind. Xiao Dageng added that if Bao Zi didn't cause any problems, then maybe in a couple years, his face would come back to normal. Bao Zi promised to never pounce again. He told his men to quickly thank Xiao Dageng. They all bowed politely. Xiao Dageng thought that this was punishment enough for them. His mission was accomplished. It was time for Xiao Dageng and Chu Xia to go home already. They got on their bicycles and rode down the road. Their abusers politely said goodbye to the boys. Chu Xia was riding on the rack of Xiao Dageng's bicycle. She was holding on tightly. Chu Xia was surprised at such a guy's skills. She asked when Xiao Dageng managed to become so cool. Xiao Dageng explained that at the university, an old man had taught him kung fu for several years. Now he hardly practiced at all, but he would soon become the strongest. Chu Xia asked if he used the dragon style. Xiao Dageng replied that his technique was much more powerful. The guys were already at the village. Xiao Dageng was going to take the girl home. Xiao Dageng drove Chu Xia home as promised. It was already evening outside. Xiao Dageng waved to the girl and advised her to return home soon. Chu Xia also said goodbye to the guy. Xiao Dageng was very happy. The fact that he and Chu Xia were growing closer. Chu Xia turned around and headed towards her house. Xiao Dageng thought that this was very good. At this rate, soon Xiao Dageng would be able to achieve Chu Xia. Meanwhile, unusual events were taking place at the foot of New Tao Mountain. Zhou Bapi was there. The man was walking somewhere. Zhou Bapi was very tired. Sweat appeared on his face, followed by several men with briefcases. Zhou Bapi wondered how much time had passed and why Yu Kai was still missing. At this moment, Zhou Bapi saw something that shocked him. In the distance along the village road, someone was riding a bicycle and approaching the mountain. Zhou Bapi and the rest of his men stared in the distance in surprise, not realizing who it was. Xiao Dageng was riding along the road. He was happily humming something to himself and was very happy. Zhou Bapi was shocked because Yu Kai was supposed to deal with Xiao Dageng, and the latter was still quietly driving around. The man felt that his idiot son couldn't be trusted with anything. He'd have to take the job himself. Zhou Bapi shifted and headed towards the guy. He was going to deal with him. The two men who were with him were very surprised. They didn't understand what their boss was up to. Zhou Bapi was full of determination. He was menacingly approaching Xiao Dageng. Xiao Dageng was very surprised. He didn't expect to see anyone on his way home. Zhou Bapi quickly ran straight at Xiao Dageng. He looked very angry. Xiao Dageng didn't understand what the man was doing here, or how he ended up right in front of him. Xiao Dagang was driving straight at him. He didn't understand what Zhou Bapai was doing and shouted for him to stop. Zhou Bapai ran right up to the front wheel of Xiao Dagang's bicycle and made strange sounds. The man fell to the ground in an instant and curled up. Xiao Dagang didn't realize what was happening. Zhou Bapai started faking. He asked why Xiao Dagang wasn't looking where he was going. He pretended to be hit. Xiao Dagang should be given the money to him today. Xiao Dagang asked how old the man was, that he was still playing these games. What kindergarten? Zhou Bapai once again reiterated that he would not leave Xiao Dagang alone if he did not give him the money today. The man told his two deputies to help him faster because he had been hit. The two men quickly ran over to Zhou Bapai and helped him stand up. They began to play along with him. Xiao Dagang thought that their family's acting skills were not lacking, and asked if the man could play a dog as well as his son. Zhou Bapai shouted that enough games. He picked up the suitcase. In the suitcase were new 2 mountains poison. At first he wanted to sell them to a pharmacy, but it is better to use here on Xiao Dagang. The guy had to wire him money immediately to avoid this. Xiao Dagang asked if the man really needed this money that much. Zhou Bapai opened the case. There were many poisonous creatures in it, spiders, scorpions, and even a huge snake. Zhou Bapai said that they are from the same village, and so he doesn't want the situation to get out of hand either. So Xiao Dagang should transfer the money quickly, and the problem will be solved. Xiao Dagang said that his phone was in Yukai's possession, and he couldn't do it. Zhou Bapai was surprised that Xiao Dagang had seen his son. He was curious about where he was now. At that moment, someone was approaching them on a motorcycle. There was a roar of the motor. Xiao Dagang turned around to see who it was approaching them. It was Yukai. Yukai looked bad. He was missing his front 2 teeth, calling out loudly to his father. Zhou Bapai ran up to him and asked if his son had Xiao Dagang's phone number. He needed to transfer money soon. Yukai replied that he didn't have the guy's phone number. He was very embarrassed. Xiao Dagang asked how so. After all, he himself had thrown it to Yukai, so he should have it. Zhou Bapai grabbed his son and started to search him. Yukai screamed and didn't want to do that. Zhou Bapai found Xiao Dagang's old cell phone in one of Yukai's jacket pockets. Zhou Bapai was angry that his son didn't tell him about the phone right away. Yukai wanted to explain everything first. Zhou Bapai thought that Yukai wanted to appropriate everything for himself. He had been like an eyesore since he was a child. The man punched his son in the stomach with his fist, swamp mud pouring out of his mouth. That filthy liquid stained Zhou Bapai's suit. The man was surprised. Zhou Bapai inhaled all the stinking flavors of the liquid from his son's mouth. He covered his nose with his hand in horror. He wondered what kind of dung he was eating, where that stench came from. Yukai asked him not to hit him. He got into a stinky ditch because of Xiao Dagang. The guy's phone had a password, so he didn't get the money. Zhou Bapai was very angry and started yelling at Xiao Dagang. He threatened him with violence. Xiao Dagang smiled and asked if it was his fault that Yukai was eating dung. Zhou Bapai told Xiao Dagang to transfer 250 to him, and they would just forget about the whole thing. Otherwise, he would bury Xiao Dagang's beggar parents in the ground today. Xiao Dagang was very angry. It was unacceptable for him to make threats towards his parents. Xiao Dagang was going to teach Zhou Bapai a lesson once and for all. Xiao Dagang angrily rushed at the man and said that it would be a guy to bury him today. Zhou Bapai didn't expect this from Xiao Dagang. He tensed up. Xiao Dagang quickly ran up to the man and punched him on the jaw with his fist. The blow was very strong. The man flew into the air, blood spurting from his mouth. Zhou Bapai flew far to the side. He was unconscious. Yukai was worried about his father. He ran to his aid. Xiao Dagang landed on the ground. Zhou Bapai's people were shocked at what they saw. They didn't recognize Xiao Dagang. They would never have thought that the guy was capable of such a thing. Xiao Dagang was confident in his strength. He had managed to teach his opponent a lesson. Yukai ran up to his father. He asked how he was feeling and said that he shouldn't die, or else who would support a man. Zhou Bapai punched his son in the face. He didn't die, and thought that Yukai had completely lost his mind. Zhou Bapai was very angry with Xiao Dagang. He was shaking with anger and was going to take revenge. The man stood up and pushed himself up from the ground. It looked like he was going to attack. Xiao Dagang wasn't afraid of him at all. He calmly watched the man fly at him. The guy was very surprised when Zhou Bapai ran past him. Xiao Dagang turned around and looked at where Zhou Bapai was running to. The man was on his way to his suitcase of poisonous creatures. He picked it up and was about to open it. Zhou Bapai threatened Xiao Dagang that he would no longer live. Zhou Bapai and Yukai's subordinates were shocked at what was happening. They didn't know what was about to happen. Zhou Bapai opened his suitcase. Thousands of poisonous creatures sprinkled out. They were varied: snakes, centipedes, spiders, and toads. Zhou Bapai's men felt that things were bad and needed to run away from here. The poisonous creatures fell to Xiao Dagang's shoulder. A few more spiders and centipedes crawled up the guy's leg. The snake landed right on Xiao Dagang's head and wrapped around it. Xiao Dagang was completely calm, not a single bit of fear on his face. Zhou Bapai laughed evilly. He had read that once his poison killed the guy, he would take away all his money. Xiao Dageng coldly asked if it was too early for the man to rejoice. Zhao Bapi would be shocked. He didn't understand why the poison wasn't working. Xiao Dageng said that every living being with a soul would always choose the side of goodness. Zhao Bapi was shocked that the poisonous animals didn't bite Xiao Dageng. Xiao Dageng used his power on the animals to make them protect him. All the venomous creatures quickly got off the guy and went somewhere. Half headed towards Zhao Bapi, and half crawled towards Yu Kai. Yu Kai was very scared. He begged to be rescued, and tried to get away from them on his motorcycle. Zhao Bapi told his son to stand. He didn't want to be left behind. The man ran after Yu Kai and asked him to take him with him. Xiao Dageng was observing this picture. He noticed that they were running quite fast. Xiao Dageng hoped that he had scared them enough this time so that they wouldn't give them any trouble. Xiao Dageng told all the poisonous creatures to return to him. All the animals crawled back into the trunk. Xiao Dageng had never thought that he would bring so many poisonous insects from the mountain. Xiao Dageng closed the chest and wondered what he should do next. First, we had to get these creatures back to the mountain so they wouldn't harm the humans. Xiao Dageng was about to bring the poisonous creature chest back to the mountain. The guy was getting tired. He dragged him to the foot of the mountain. Xiao Dageng decided that it was worth it to just put these poisons in the middle of the mountainside. At that moment, something caught the guy's attention. He heard strange sounds. Xiao Dageng looked up. On the tree directly above him, a white snake circled the branch. A snake was doing its toilet on a branch and screamed loudly. Xiao Dageng looked at the animal excrement with disgust. It almost fell on him. Xiao Dageng knew that there was a technique for producing poisons and cultivating plant medicinal raw materials. These experiments could be useful for making one of the fertilizers for cultivating medicinal plants. If this fertilizer is used in agriculture, perhaps it will show some miraculous property. Xiao Dageng started collecting excrement and thought that he needed to find other ingredients as well. Some time passed, there was an owl sitting on a tree branch. Xiao Dageng, just as he was about to find all the necessary ingredients for this fertilizer, and gathered them on a napkin. It only lacked the basic ingredients: the boy's urine and the blood of a practitioner of the 10,000 Poisons technique. Fortunately, Xiao Dageng could easily obtain this as well. He unzipped his pants and peed on that pile of ingredients. Next, Xiao Dageng needed blood. He used his magic to cut his hand. Xiao Dageng did well. A cut appeared on his palm. He was in a bit of pain. Xiao Dageng added a few drops of his blood to this pile of ingredients. Next, something unusual began to happen. Xiao Dageng was very surprised. The guy really did it. All the ingredients flew into the air and started making fertilizer. Now it was necessary to use machinery to perfect this fertilizer. Xiao Dageng used the practice of 10,000 poisons. The entire surroundings lit up with blue flames. All the fertilizer ingredients flew up and started mixing with each other. The wind rose around. It blew the leaves off the trees. Xiao Dageng's magic was working. The process was not quick. The first rays of the new day's sun were already showing over the mountain. Xiao Dageng was sitting on the mountain and practicing his magic ability. He wanted to finish fertilizing. Guy almost had it. Above his head, all the ingredients mixed together and turned into a black mass. Something that looked like ashes landed on the napkin. Xiao Dageng looked at the fertilizer. It took all night to practice. It took all the guy's energy, but the result is still weak. The level of Ming-Chi wasn't enough to create more than one ball. He was going to go home and try. The sun shone clearly over the village and life went on as usual. Xiao Dageng was approaching his house. Suddenly, the guy saw someone talking to his mom. It was Aunt Lu. The guy didn't realize what the woman had left at his house. The women saw Xiao Dageng approaching them. They turned around. Xiao Dageng's mom waved to the guy. She was glad that he had finally returned. The woman told her son that Aunt Lu had found a good job for him. The boy was surprised. Xiao Dageng said that it was very kind of her and asked if the woman had forgotten that he had just sold ginseng. Liu thought that it wouldn't be easy with Xiao Dageng, but it's no good talking to the older generation like that. She's kindly doing this all for the guy. Xiao Dageng's mother asked him not to be rude to his elders and apologized to Liu. Xiao Dageng didn't think that age could justify bad actions. Xiao Dageng told Aunt Lu to hurry up and get out of here. The guy had other things to do. The woman thought he was lucky to have found that ginseng. She would see how he would sing when the money from selling the ginseng ran out. Aunt Liu had already left. She was sure the guy would still come crawling back to her on his knees. Xiao Dageng told his mother to ignore her. He brought the fertilizer he had created himself and offered to try it on the onion. Xiao Dageng found that the mountain's poison was very valuable. He was going to go and ask the villagers to help him clean up the mountain. The woman did not expect such actions from her son. She looked after him. Xiao Dageng jogged up to the Nutu mountain and was about to carry out his plan. He gathered his fellow villagers and was going to ask them for his help. The guy has already drawn circles on the ground where they need to dig a hole. Of course he will thank them for their work. Each person who would help him today, the guy was going to pay 300 yen. Residents were concerned about poisons because they could harm people. Xiao Dageng told him not to worry. He had used special medicinal potions to move all the poisons to the top of the bark. They just didn't need to cross the line. All the residents cheered and let out a loud cheer. They were ready to work. At this moment, someone shouted to Xiao Dagang to stop. This person was very angry. Xiao Dagang and all the residents turned around. They had not expected this turn of events. The one who shouted was Zhao Bapi, holding a paper envelope in his hands. Xiao Dagang didn't understand what the man had forgotten here. He thought he had taught him a lesson. Zhao Bapai didn't come today for Xiao Dagang's sake. Xiao Dagang has delayed the contract payment for this mountain, so the residents are not being paid. The guy got angry and waited for the man to tell him what he wanted. Zhao Bapi smirked. He was going to ruin Xiao Dagang's life. Zhao Bapai said, "Since Xiao Dagang is not paying the contract money, then the nursing home will be built here." Everyone started supporting him and saying that the headman was talking a case. Zhao Bapi was about to start. Everyone picked up their shovels and got to work. Xiao Dagang was going to stop their construction. He clearly didn't like the idea. Xiao Dagang was sure that he had paid for the contract. Besides, this mountain was not suitable for building a nursing home and they should return. Zhao Bapi claimed there was no payment and Xiao Dagang refused to pay. Zhao Bapi threatened that if Xiao Dagang procrastinated, he would send the elderly to live at Xiao Dagang's home. One of the men claimed that everyone agreed that the mountain belonged to Xiao Dagang and the headman supported him in everything. However, they need money from the contract to build roads and a nursing home. The man had difficulty breathing, could no longer speak, and fainted. The others also told Xiao Dagang to hand over the money and repay the debt if he didn't want to tarnish his reputation. The others began to say that they had watched the guy grow up and didn't he feel sorry for the lonely old people at all. Everyone has heard that Xiao Dagang raised poisonous creatures to harm the headman, and this is how he repays his generosity. Xiao Dagang realized that Zhao Bapi was using the old men to swindle money from him and needed to stop this baloney. Xiao Dagang shouted and told everyone to stop. He was going to explain everything. Xiao Dagang said that he was not trying to avoid payment, and indeed had already settled the payment issue with Liu Bo, the village financier. Zhao Bapi was angry, and I don't understand why Liu Bo didn't say anything about it. Xiao Dagang said that if the man didn't believe him, he could bring Liu Bo over and ask him everything. One of the old men was still lying on the ground unconscious. It looked like he had already died. Zhao Bapai shouted that Xiao Dagang should have first put the headman on notice before dealing with such matters. Xiao Dagang believed that if he did so, the man would have embezzled all the money for himself, and Liu Bo was known for his honesty. Zhao Bapai was confident that Xiao Dagang wouldn't be able to intimidate him. After all, he was the headman here, and Liu Bo obeyed him. Zhao Bapi shouted and asked if there was anyone here to go after Liu Bo. At that moment, the man saw his case of poisonous creatures near the tree. He kept shouting who could find Liu Bo. Xiao Dagang asked how the poultry farm at the foot of his mountain was, if there was even a single live chicken left. Zhao Bapi asked how Xiao Dagang knew that they all died. He thought it was the guy's doing. At that moment, the argument was interrupted by a loud shout. Xiao Dagang turned around and realized that things were bad. One of the fellow villagers lay next to the tree. The poisonous creatures from the case spread all over his body. Xiao Dagang had forgotten to deal with these poisons, and now they were attacking people. All the inhabitants were frightened of these poisonous creatures. They began to scatter. Zhao Bapi laughed. After all, Xiao Dagang had caused a person to get hurt because of Xiao Dagang. Xiao Dagang decided to use a low-level poison fighting technique to save the man. At that very second, all the poisonous creatures crawled away from the man. He was unconscious. All the residents noticed that the creatures were obeying Xiao Dagang, and it was his handiwork. He was the one who had sired the creatures. Xiao Dagang at this time used his strength to help Old Man Lu, for he was covered in blood. All the residents were screaming and felt that they should call his wife sooner rather than later. Xiao Dagang was focused. He was very worried about the man's fate and wanted to help him. He had been bitten in more than one place. Now there were at least 2 or 3 kinds of poisons in his body. The poison spread too fast. Xiao Dagang needed to cut off access to the heart. The guy pulled out his needles. However, Zhao Bapai stopped him. He grabbed the guy's arm and asked if the guy wanted to kill him. Xiao Dagang was angry and asked if Zhao Bapi still dared to interfere because if it wasn't for him, nothing would have happened. The man didn't understand what this had to do with him. After all, it was because of Xiao Dagang that he was bitten. Xiao Dagang hit Zhao Bapai. The man flew far away. The guy sat down beside Old Man Liu and decided to use the needles. He stabbed his needles into the heart area. They lit up with blue flames. Xiao Dagang thought that the next thing to do was to get the poison out of his hand. He started using the 1,000 poison technique. At that moment, he was interrupted again. Someone's hand was approaching the guy. Xiao Dagang saw this. He wouldn't have had time to dodge anymore. Xiao Dagang put up his hand to avoid getting hit by this person. It was Auntie Liu. She thought that Xiao Dagang was also taking revenge on her for the incident with Chuxia. It was very cruel of him. Xiao Dagang said that the woman was crazy, and he was not guilty of the man being bitten. Liu didn't believe him, and everyone knows how much trouble the guy brought to the Zhou family with those poisons. Zhou Bapi added that everyone had seen those things sprawl after a few gestures from Xiao Dagang. It was definitely his doing. Xiao Dagang did it to protect people, and Zhou Bapai is trying to stop him. Auntie Liu slapped Xiao Dagong on the back. She believed that if that was the case, the guy wouldn't have let Liu get hurt. Xiao Dagang didn't want to discuss this nonsense anymore. The woman was better off not interfering with Xiao Dagang's withdrawal of poison. Auntie Liu read the guy as hypocritical. She was sure that Xiao Dagang wouldn't be able to cure him after 2 years of study. Everyone thought that the man should be taken to Fu Bo, rather. Everyone ran to him. Zhou Bapi told Xiao Dagang to go with them, and if anything happened to Liu, Xiao Dagang would sit down vitally. The guy was very angry. He didn't understand how he had gotten into such an unpleasant situation. On the outskirts of the village stood a small but well-kept cottage. An elderly man lived in it. Herbs were spread out in front of him. The old man was kneading something in his mortar. This was Fu Bo's house. There was suddenly someone knocking on his door. These people were very persistent. Fu Bo was the healer of their village. The man didn't realize who was breaking in, so he told his assistant Shen to take a look to see who had come. Shen opened the door. Auntie Liu was screaming there. She was asking her husband to be rescued quickly. He was about to throw off his skates. Fu Bo was very surprised. He told him to bring the sick man in as soon as possible. Everyone fussed. Fellow villagers carried the man in and laid him on the bed in the room. Fu Bo examined the sick man. He felt his pulse. Auntie Liu inquired about her husband's condition, whether anything could be done. Fu Bo realized from the wound that the man had been bitten by a poisonous snake. Liu shouted that it was all Xiao Dagang and his damn striped snake that he had brought from somewhere. Fu Bo noticed that striped vipers, although very poisonous, but they would never just bite a person. Probably Liu had gotten to it himself. Auntie Liu didn't know what to reply. She still thought Xiao Dagang was at fault. The snake's venom is deadly, and it looks like the man was also bitten by something else. Luckily, he was given first aid. Fu Bo took another look at his patient. He began to think of how to help him. Fu Bo asked who placed the needles in the man's heart area. The woman looked at her husband's body with anger. She remembered Xiao Dagang's pranks. Auntie Liu said that it was Xiao Dagang himself who put them in, and he fancied himself a healer. She reached out to pull out the needles. Fu Bo shouted and tried to stop Auntie Liu. However, he was too late. The woman ripped all the needles out of Liu's body with one hand movement. Fu Bo was horrified. There was no way those needles could be pulled out. Fu Bo shouted at Auntie Liu. He was sure she could kill him with this. Fu Bo told the woman to see what she had done. The man was very upset. Auntie Liu looked at her husband. She was shocked by what she saw. Liu's condition worsened in an instant. He started squirming in pain and screaming loudly. Auntie Liu was terrified. She didn't understand what was happening, or why her husband was getting worse. The woman began to beg Fu Bo to put the needles back in. But the man did not know how to do it, an art that takes decades to learn. Auntie Liu was shocked. The woman was in tears. She fell to her knees and begged to save her husband. As much as Fu Bo wanted to help, the needles that held back the poison were taken out. Thus, the woman allowed the poison to instantly strike her heart. If she didn't pull out the needles, Fu Bo would be able to help the man. He felt sorry. Auntie Liu threw a tantrum about hurting her husband herself. She collapsed to the floor and flooded with bitter tears. Her fellow villagers looked sadly at the woman's suffering, but could do nothing to help her. Aunt Liu's screams could be heard from far away. The woman kept on sobbing. At this instant, Xiao Dagang walked through the door. He asked what was going on here. His fellow villagers shouted at him. They were angry at the guy and asked where he came from. It was Dr. Shen. Xiao Dagang asked why he had slinked away like a rat last time, and whether he had come for ginseng again. Shen started to make excuses. He only wanted to learn medicine from Fu Bo. Xiao Dagang was noticed by Auntie Liu. She stood up and ran at Xiao Dagang. She was very angry. The woman wanted to take revenge on Xiao Dagang, but he was able to move away in time. Auntie Liu ran right into Dr. Shen, who couldn't react in time. The woman knocked Dr. Shen down. They collapsed to the ground. Xiao Dagang didn't understand what was going on, whether Auntie Liu was sick or not. The woman screamed that Xiao Dagang had ruined her husband and was going to take revenge on him. Xiao Dagang was very surprised to hear this. Uncle Liu shouldn't have died. Xiao Dagang had personally placed some silver needles, and they were supposed to contain all the poison. Fu Bo couldn't let him die so easily. Fu Bo shouted at Auntie Liu and said that she had just buried the chances of saving her husband herself, and took out the needles herself. The woman was shocked. She didn't expect to be accused. Fu Bo said that the woman wants to throw the blame on Xiao Dagang, and she has no shame or conscience. If a woman still wants her husband to survive, she should shut her mouth. Auntie Liu was shocked. The woman felt as if she had been electrocuted. Xiao Dagang was shocked that the woman pulled out his needles. Dr. Shen confirmed it. Xiao Dagang was very angry. He asked if Auntie Liu's brain was completely sucked out. The woman continued to cry sitting on the ground. She didn't understand what she should do to make sure her husband survived. Fu Bo asked if Xiao Dagang's needles were aimed at preserving chi energy. Xiao Dagang confirmed that it was. Fu Bo couldn't believe it. He asked where Xiao Dagang had learned such a superior technique. Dr. Shen was surprised that Xiao Dageng was an acupuncture master and he shouldn't have ruined his relationship with him. Dr. Shen approached Auntie Lu. He was going to make her stop sobbing. Dr. Shen told her to calm down, because her husband wasn't dead yet. The woman hugged the doctor. She asked if he could help. She was willing to do anything just to make sure her husband survived. Dr. Shen replied that his skills wouldn't be enough here, and the only one who could help was standing behind him. The woman was surprised that the doctor was talking about Xiao Dageng. Even Fu Bo was powerless here. She couldn't believe that the guy knew about medicine. Shen believed that the woman had sawdust instead of brains. Her husband was still alive only because of Xiao Dageng and his skill. Dr. Shen tried to butter the guy up. He told the woman to quickly kneel down in front of the man who saves her husband. Fu Bo confirmed that if anyone could help her husband, it was Xiao Dageng. The woman was shocked. She didn't expect her husband's life to depend on a young guy. Auntie Liu fell on her knees in front of Xiao Dageng. There was nothing left for her to do but beg him. The woman asked Xiao Dageng to forgive her for everything, and begged him to save her husband. Xiao Dageng replied that everything was God's will, but he would do his best and there was no need to put on a show here. Fu Bo wasn't sure if anything could be done, because even needles were unlikely to help now. The poison had already penetrated his heart. Xiao Dageng wasn't sure of a positive outcome, but it was worth a try. Xiao Dageng began to use his strength to help the sick man and stop the poison. Uncle Liu's heart had been sent out. Xiao Dageng was going to try to put needles directly into it. Xiao Dageng asked Fu Bo to help take off the sick man's tank top. Fu Bo did everything as Xiao Dageng said, the guy with the concentration. Next was the hardest part. Xiao Dageng took out his silver needles. He needed to display extraordinary precision. Sweat was pouring down Xiao Dageng's face. He was very nervous to do everything right. Fu Bo was shocked. He had never seen such skill in acupuncture before. With precise movements of his hand, Xiao Dageng inserted the needles directly into the man's heart. The silver needles lit up with blue flames and sucked the poison onto themselves. Next, Xiao Dageng had to suck out the poison with his hand as well. The guy put his hand near the needles and began to absorb the blue energy. Xiao Dageng had some difficulties. The matter was not an easy one. There were too many vessels. We had to put many needles in the affected and unaffected parts of the heart and monitor them all. Xiao Dageng asked Fu Marshal if there was any way to make the body go beyond its limits. The man answered that there is such a thing, but it is very dangerous. For this it is necessary to put needles in special points, but the heart cannot withstand it. Xiao Dageng resolutely replied that it had to be done, as they had no other choice. Fu Bo hesitated. He wasn't sure if this was a good option after all. The side effects were numerous. Xiao Dageng was worried himself, but he was determined to help the man. Fu Bo closed his eyes. He was willing to try to do this. Xiao Dageng needed to be patient while Fu Bo placed the needles and didn't talk so he wouldn't lose energy. Fu Bo was also a master in acupuncture. He took silver needles. He placed the first needle in Xiao Dageng's temple just above his ear. Also, with great speed, the man also placed the rest of the needles all over Xiao Dageng's head, as well as into his shoulders. Everything was ready. The guy's energy had clearly intensified, with blue flames all around him. The guy was really struggling. His body was working at the edge of its capacity. The guy wouldn't last that long. Shen wondered if Xiao Dageng could stand it. Fu Bo didn't know, but it would definitely take a few years off the guy's life. Xiao Dageng brought his hand to Uncle Liu's heart and began to suck out the poison. Xiao Dageng was very concentrated. It was a very difficult task, but the guy didn't back down. Above Uncle Liu's chest, the first traces of poison appeared, rising up to Xiao Dageng's arm. Xiao Dageng kept sucking out the poison. Uncle Liu slowly came to his senses. He opened one eye. Fu Bo noticed that Xiao Dageng was a good boy after all, and he hoped that everything would go well. Auntie Liu continued to sob. She thanked Xiao Dageng for trying to save her husband. Xiao Dageng retracted his hand. It looked like he had done his best. The guy pulled all the needles from Uncle Liu's heart area with a single hand movement. Xiao Dageng looked at his hand. There were many needles in it. The guy didn't feel very good. Fu Bo, along with Dr. Shen, looked at the guy worriedly. He obviously needed help. Xiao Dageng replied that he had taken out all the poisons and toxins from Uncle Liu's body. However, the guy felt very bad. He asked to soak Uncle Liu with pills and vitamins. Xiao Dageng's eyes gradually closed. Everyone around him looked at the guy excitedly. They didn't understand what was happening to him. In the next second, Xiao Dageng fell off the chair unconsciously. He had tensed up too much. Everyone asked what was wrong with the guy. Xiao Dageng had a very pained look. Fu Bo told him to bring him some water. At that time, Uncle Liu came to his senses. Auntie Liu was sobbing. She was very happy that her husband had woken up. The woman fell to her knees and began to thank Xiao Dageng. She would not be indebted to him. Fu Bo thought that Xiao Dageng was a miracle man, and there was nothing wrong with him. It was all from overwork. He would soon be back to normal. The man didn't know where the guy learned such a thing, but he wishes that Xiao Dageng wouldn't side with evil with such abilities. In the center of the village stood the huge mansion of the village elder. It was a clear, sunny day. Yukai was talking to someone on the phone. His folks took off somewhere, so they're hanging out today, the man said to call everyone. Yukai was sitting in the middle of his room wearing women's clothes. He told and remembered to call the girls. Yukai was angry that there would be no girls, but he quickly calmed down. He was excited for the party. Yukai went out into the yard and walked into his chicken farm. He took one rooster by the neck. The guy put the rooster in a black bag and walked home humming something to himself. Yukai leisurely walked through the streets of the village, carrying his loot in his hands. At this moment, something caught Yukai's attention. He stopped and looked to the side. In front of his eyes was Chushia's house. There was a big gap in her fence. Chushia was in the courtyard hanging the laundry that had been washed. Yukai thought she was a redneck and felt disgusted by her. At this time, the ruckus in Fubo's house had already ended. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Fubo made Xiao Dagang a hot broth to help him get back on his feet sooner. Xiao Dagang was already feeling much better. He thanked Fubo and said that he was almost normal already. Although the guy's body had recovered, however, his ki energy was greatly affected, so he shouldn't overexert himself. Xiao Dagang assured Fubo that he was fine, so the man had nothing to worry about. Fubo realized that Xiao Dagang had his own secrets. The most important thing was to keep everything in order. Xiao Dagang didn't quite understand what the man was talking about and what secrets he was hiding. Fubo was sure that someone who did good deeds, even if he got into trouble, he would get out of it quickly. And also with great power comes great responsibility. Xiao Dagang was sure that Fubo knew what kind of person he was, and that he wouldn't do anything like that. The man figured that if the guy understood it himself, he could be calm. Fubo began to point out Xiao Dagang's mistakes in acupuncture. The needle placement was lame, and he also lacked knowledge about the hidden potential of the human body. Xiao Dagang explained that he hadn't studied it at all, and medicine was too extensive a science, and he was as far from mastery as the moon. Fubo was shocked. Xiao Dagang really did have incredible abilities. The man thought that was great, and this was his chance. Fubo was about to propose to Xiao Dagang. The boy didn't understand what was going on at all. Fubo offered Xiao Dagang to become his disciple. Then he could teach him everything. The man was going to pass on his knowledge to the guy, and in a few years the guy would be able to become the greatest healer of all time. Xiao Dagang was shocked at such a suggestion. He had not expected this at all. The man didn't understand why Xiao Dagang was hesitant. After all, even in times of war, wounded soldiers were constantly brought to him. So the man was an excellent healer. Xiao Dagang couldn't put in his 5 cents. The man kept talking. Fubo said that the topic was closed and he didn't want to discuss it anymore. Now Xiao Dagang was his disciple. The man told Xiao Dagang to finish the broth soon and go back home and report everything to his parents. The man thought that he was very lucky, as Xiao Dagang possessed absolutely inexplicable skills as for such a boy. Fubo cried with happiness because he was lucky to meet such a student, and he was already afraid that he would take his knowledge to the grave. It was morning, the sun peeking out from behind the high mountains. Xiao Dagang was returning home just as Fubo had promised. He was already feeling a little better. Xiao Dagang didn't understand at all how to explain this strange situation to his parents. At this moment, Xiao Dagang was called out by Chuxia. The guy was surprised. Xiao Dagang said hello to the girl. She seemed to be returning from the store and was carrying bags in her hands. The girl heard that Xiao Dagang saved Uncle Liu yesterday and then fainted. Xiao Dagang said he was fine. In the evening, the girl was going to cook some delicious food. She suggested Xiao Dagang to come over to her place and improve her health at the same time. Xiao Dagang was beyond excited. He agreed to Chuxia's proposal. The boys said goodbye. They agreed to meet this evening. Xiao Dagang was already flying in the clouds. He was head over heels in love with Chuxia. At this time, there was a party somewhere, with liquor bottles and cigarette butts lying on the ground. It was Yukai and his friends sitting there. They were drinking beer and chatting. One of the guys heard that Yukai has some upstart, and his name is Xiao Dagang. Yukai was already drunk. He asked if Xiao Dagang had interrupted his friend with something. The young man didn't know him. He just wondered who was feuding with Yukai. The guy started laughing with Xiao Dagang's name. He had strange associations with him. Everyone started laughing from this and thought Xiao Dagang was a redneck. Yukai drank another bottle of beer to the bottom in a volley. The guy was already drunk. He set the bottle on the table with a clatter. The man was pissed. Yukai was determined to harass Xiao Dagang sooner or later. His friend had heard that Xiao Dagang had thrown Yukai into some slop pit. Another friend also started laughing. He asked why Yukai was blushing. Was it really all true? Yukai was angry. He jumped up from the table. He was fed up with all this. Yukai said that he himself had fallen into this pit by accident. He was going to force Xiao Dagang to change his name soon. Yukai got up from the table and walked away from his friends. The guys tried to stop him. It was already evening. The sun had hidden behind the horizon, and clouds were floating across the sky. Yukai was staggering around the village in a drunken state. He was angry at Xiao Dagang. The rumors about Yukai had already spread to other villages. He was going to take revenge on the guy. At this moment, Yukai heard some pleasant smell. He was surprised and decided to find out where it was coming from. The smell was coming out of Chuxia's house. The girl was cooking dinner. Chuxia had prepared many delicious dishes. They were already all on the table waiting for Xiao Dagang. Yukai was surprised and didn't understand what it smelled so delicious. Yukai entered Chuxia's courtyard and looked around. He realized that this courtyard where Chuxia lived, there were washed clothes weighing down everywhere around. He had read that the collective farmer dressed like a sack of potatoes, but her panties were beautiful. He had never worn them before. Yukai tore off the girl's underwear. It was a little small for him. The guy was going to steal them. Yukai looked around. He was going to bring a few more sets of underwear with him. They weren't cheap. At this moment, Yukai pushed one of the beams in the courtyard. The stick fell to the floor with a loud clang. Yukai was startled. Chuxia heard this sound. She thought that Xiao Dagang had come to her house for dinner. The girl looked out into the courtyard and was dumbfounded by what she saw. Yukai stood in the middle of her courtyard, holding many sets of the girl's underwear. Chuxia told her to put her things back and roll, or she would call for help. Yukai thought that the girl would not succeed after all. His father is the head of the village. Yukai didn't know that Chuxia was such a delicious cook, so she also had alcohol in her house, and he just wanted a drink. Chuxia tried to stop Yukai, but the guy pushed her away and went inside the house. Yukai insulted Chuxia. He told her to come here and have a drink with him. The guy sat down at the table. Chuxia sent Yukai far away. When Xiao Dagang comes, he will knock out the guy's last teeth. Yukai was angry after hearing about Xiao Dagang. It was as if the guy was stalking him. Yukai was surprised that these two were still dating. He thought they were two collective faces, and spat with anger. Yukai wasn't going to leave so easily. He picked up the chopsticks and was about to start dinner. The boy grabbed one of the plates and began to gorge himself quickly and greedily on the treat. Chuxia was very angry. She thought that when Xiao Dagang came, Yukai would not be happy. Yukai wasn't afraid of Xiao Dagang, and if he came, the guy was going to give him a smack. Yukai thought Xiao Dagang was an Alfonso. He comes to a girl's house, drinks, and sleeps over. Chuxia was angry at such a guy's impudent words. She wasn't going to tolerate it. The girl punched Yukai in the face. He was shocked. The impact was so strong that Yukai fell off the chair and flew to the floor. The girl told Yukai to shut his mouth and not to insult her and Xiao Dagang. Yukai was very angry. He asked how dare Chuxia beat him. Yukai was going to teach the girl a lesson. He got up and started to run at her quickly. Chuxia tried to fight back. She told him to stay away from her. The girl started to wield her nails. She made some quick and sharp movements. Chuxia scratched Yukai's face, leaving deep marks on it. Yukai cried out in pain. He didn't expect such a backlash from the girl. Yukai grabbed his face and screamed that he was in pain and that the girl had gone crazy. Yukai lashed out at her. He threatened to kill Chuxia. The girl tried with all her might to fight off Yukai. She grabbed his hair. Yukai tried to harm the girl. He was drunk and he jumped on her. Yukai tried to grab the girl's hands and prevent her from moving. But Chuxia was able to break free and grab onto the guy's shirt. She pulled at her shirt. The buttons on it came off and it opened. When the shirt was revealed, underneath was an undergarment with unusual writing on it. Yukai felt embarrassed. This shouldn't be seen by anyone. It was a secret. Chuxia was shocked. She didn't expect the guy to have such perverted preferences. The girl called Yukai a pervert and backed away from him. It became clear to the girl why he was stealing her things. Yukai was going to put them on himself. Yukai was angry. He was shocked that someone had found out the truth about him. Yukai wanted to take revenge on Chuxia. He swung his foot at her and was about to hit her. The guy punched the girl in the face. She flew out the door into her yard. Chuxia was unconscious. She landed on the ground and was hit hard. Chuxia was lying in her courtyard. Blood began to slowly flow out of her head. Yukai realized what he had done. The guy was really scared. He walked up to the girl and started kicking her. He told her to stop pretending. Chuxia was still lying unconscious as well, the pool of blood underneath her growing larger and larger. Yukai was very scared. He didn't understand what he should do now. Yukai seriously thought that he had killed a person. The guy was covered in cold sweat. From such a shock, Yukai fell to the ground. He shouted that he wasn't the one who did all this. Yukai decided to run away. He shouted that the girl had fallen by herself and it was all her fault. Yukai ran out into the gap in Chuxia's fence. He was trying to leave unnoticed. A second later, Yukai was no longer in the courtyard. The girl was unconsciously lying on the ground. Xiao Dagang was already on his way to Chuxia's dinner. He was in high spirits and was humming something to the tray. Xiao Dagang was very happy that he was invited to study by the best healer, because he was already tired of explaining to his parents that he was really proficient in medicine. Xiao Dagang had already arrived at Chuxia's house. He was excited for a wonderful dinner. Xiao Dagang was shocked by what he saw in her courtyard. The guy was horrified. Right in front of Xiao Dagang, Chuxia was lying unconscious. The door to her house was open. Xiao Dagang ran up to the girl. He asked her not to make fun of him and asked what happened.